right, thank you, everyone. It's always wonderful to have such a full chamber and have folks with us, and especially when it's for a celebratory reason, and we will be getting to that celebratory reason in short order, but thank you to everyone who's here with us. Part of our habit is to run through the agenda just quickly before I officially call the meeting to order so that folks can have a sense of what's before us and the council can also sort of make sure we're all on the same page. I know Kim is ready in the BevCam booth. Thank you, Kim, making sure that our meeting is available and accessible to folks at home, so thank you for that. Tonight we do have a very full agenda. This is our last regular meeting before the summer recess, and so Councilors, we can endeavor to work together to be efficient and work our way through this expeditiously. Several of the matters are pretty routine, so we'll take those as a matter of course. We will begin. We've got a great presentation. I think it's why many of you are here, so we'll jump into that first, and then we do have another presentation from our planning director. We will likely come back around to that after the 5 public hearings we've got starting at 7:30 through 8:30, and then we've got some routine business. We'll take a break for some committee work and come back to wrap it all up. So with that, I'll officially call to order this regular meeting of the Beverly City Council, Monday, June 17th, 7:00 p.m. Ms. Kent, will you please call the roll?
Bowen. Here. Crowley. Here. Feldman. Here. Hausman. Here. Rotundo. Here. Spang. Here. St. Hilaire. Here. Sweeney. Here. And Flowers.
Here. Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Councilor Sweeney, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'd ask that we remain standing for a moment of silence for Russell Bud Halloran Jr., one of our firefighters who recently died. Of the United States of America, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilor Sweeney, and thank you everyone for that moment of silence. As I mentioned, taking a moment of silence for retired firefighter Russell Bud Halloran Jr. He's a Beverly firefighter for 27 years and a wonderful part of that department. Also a U.S. Air Force veteran, and his wife Sylvia and then his 2 sons, both firefighters, part of the fire department themselves, Deputy Chief Halloran and firefighter Mike Halloran. Our thoughts, our prayers, our care are with them all as we remember Bud and all of his contributions to this community. So thank you all for helping us to honor his memory tonight. I'd like to go right to presentations, awards, and memorials. And I believe I saw Mayor Cahill is here with us. Thank you, Mayor. As well as Executive Director of the Greater Beverly YMCA, Tim Flaherty, is somewhere in this room, I believe. Thank you. Nice to see you, former Councilor Flaherty, in your current role. And for this is a presentation for the Youth Exemplary Award winners and honorable mention. So Councilor Rotundo, in your role as chair of the Youth Collaboration Board, I'd love to call you to the podium along with the mayor and Mr. Flaherty in whatever order you all would like to go, but to help us to kick off celebrating these exemplary young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. It's great to see everyone here tonight. As people may or may not know, this Youth Exemplary Award was done back in the 90s under then Tim Flaherty, who was actually one of the original Teen Center directors when it was at McPherson. He introduced the award to us at our April council meeting, and as the Youth Council, Youth Collaborative the Youth Collaborative Chair, we had discussed actually reintroducing this award. So with the nomination of city leaders, community leaders, they identified students within the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school who really exemplified themselves, basically. So I'm going to actually have the mayor present the awards right now, and I just want to thank the nominating committee who actually reviewed all the applications. For the first time in having this for 25 years, we got over 15 applications, which was fantastic. So I want to congratulate everyone who was nominated, because it really shows that you guys really do a great job within your community, so thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Councilor Rotundo and Chair of the Youth Collaborative. Just a quick note on the Youth Collaborative. The YMCA has, for over 30 years, been a partner with the city, and the city contracts with the YMCA to run the McPherson Youth Center. And the Youth Collaborative is about that and more. It's about youth services in the community. So it's an incredible group of volunteers who are involved with the city and with the Y and the schools and just throughout the community. They do great things. So bringing back the Exemplary Youth Award gives us a chance to recognize some pretty awesome young people. What I think I'll do first is I'm going to call everybody up, okay? I'll call your names, and this will include the honorable mentions and the award winners together. We'll have everybody come up because for everybody, we've got a certificate, as well as for everybody, we have a $25 gift certificate at, no, not Dairy Queen, but Copper Dog Books, our own bookstore right downtown. So each one of you will have a chance to go get something great there sometime during the course of the summer. So yes, let's get everybody up. And Madam President, I don't want to speak for you, but generally in these situations, you call a brief recess afterwards, so there can be a lot of opportunity for pictures and congratulatory.
Yes.
I just want to make sure they knew that.
That is absolutely the plan. So we'll have a chance for pictures and folks to get up and move around for a bit.
So what I think I'll do is I will read, this all of the,
These are the
right. Is this all of the?
honorables.
This is honorables, but not, okay, gotcha. Okay, so when I call your name, why don't you please come right up here, and we will give you both your certificate of congratulations and your gift certificate. So Jeremy, this is middle school, Jeremy Coolidge, and if I mispronounce any names, please tell me, and then we'll say them right, because I don't want to mispronounce. But so Jeremy Coolidge, Ankal Deng, Lucy Falk, Adabong Nguyen, those are middle school. Are any of those young folks here? No, middle schoolers are the late arrivers. I should remember that from having taught middle school.
In fairness, BMS starts later than the elementary and the high school, right? So.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Okay, that's good. That's good. So high schoolers, Grace Adams, Dennis Dentis, Carly Jones, Sarah Spirigliosi, and Braden Mackenzie Willenbrock. Congratulations. Mr. Chairman, come up and shake these hands. I took some glasses up. That wasn't wise.
Make sure the maid gets.
There you go. Oh, yeah. Carly, come back. We have a gift certificate for you.
That's what I was going for. Shake your hand, but that was all right.
All right, we'll get, so if anybody sees any of our middle schoolers come in, make sure that we pay attention to that and call them up.
Yeah, the rest are just.
The rest of the award, okay, so then those were the honorable mention recipients from the high school. Thank you all. And now we'll call up one at a time the Youth Exemplary Award winners. First, from the elementary school level, we have Aiden Flaherty. Aiden, you want to come up? You can have that for your gift certificate. Okay. Aiden Flaherty is a 10-year-old superstar. He plays drums, football, video games, and soccer, loves skiing, swimming, and playing with his dog, Ebby. Aiden has a rare condition of the eyes called achromatopsia. Achromatopsia. Okay, thank you for that, Aiden. The sunlight was too bright for him to see with clarity. He has navigated this condition with determination and positivity, and by working at gaining the tools he needs today and for tomorrow. Recently, he underwent gene therapy in one eye. He dove right in, knowing that what was a challenging process would, whatever the outcome for him, also bring hope to others. At 10 years old, Aiden is a role model for how we can keep persevering and showing up for each other. And Aiden, you have this Youth Exemplary Award, Elementary School Division, proudly presented to Aiden Flaherty, and it's signed by me, by Councilor Rotundo as chairman of the Youth Collaborative Board, and by Timothy P. Flaherty as executive director of the Greater Beverly YMCA. Now, and I noticed Aiden brought his whole neighborhood with him. That's good. Middle School Exemplary Youth Awards. Is Zakaria Farouk here? Well, I know that. You told me that before. Okay. So going by Zach, as a middle schooler, Zach Farouk started, no way. Zach Farouk started not paying so much attention in class initially. However, he revealed quickly his kind and his hardworking nature. Despite challenges with being an English language learner and having ADHD, Zach excels academically and shows maturity beyond his years. Zach has been raised by his mom after his father's passing. His resilience and dedication to education have earned him support and recognition from his community and his school. And I know you have a couple of your teachers here with you. Who came along with you? Mr. Kruniak?
Teachers, Mr. Kruniak, Mrs. Davis, Ms. Kimbali, and Ms. Blaza.
Wow, a lot of your teachers. We're going to make sure they get in your pictures with you in a few minutes, okay? Thank you, buddy. This is for you. And so is this gift certificate to Copper Dog Books.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. And as we keep going, we have 3 more students to recognize. I just want to say, the reason we're in this room is because the city council is meeting tonight, and the city council is your legislative branch of government, and the mayor is the head of your executive branch. So what you young people have is your whole city government taking the time to congratulate you and celebrate you because you've done some awesome things. And that's great for our community. Thank you. Emma Swisher. Is Emma here? Emma, an exemplary student at Beverly Middle School, embodies qualities like curiosity, integrity, and resilience. She shows intellectual curiosity by actively participating in discussions. She displays integrity by making ethical choices and helping peers, and she demonstrates resilience by persevering after the loss of her twin sister. Emma's positivity and her kindness further highlight her suitability for recognition as one of our exemplary youth. Emma, this is for you to take. Thank you so very much. Now we have 2 high school students to honor. We'll start with Lacey Turner. Oh, I was going to say this, but it's written down, so it's here. Because Lacey was our intern during the high school Reach internship program. So Lacey Turner, a senior at Beverly, a graduate of Beverly High School, who also interned in the mayor's office for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at City Hall through the Reach program. Lacey is the BHS, again, was, now that you're a graduate, sorry, has been the Beverly High School Aegis magazine editor, is active in the First Baptist Youth Fellowship and leads Sunday sermons. Lacey collaborates on equity and sustainability, volunteers with LGBTQIA+ groups, supports neurodivergent students, excels academically, and enhances public speaking skills. She courageously shares her perspective in community discussions. She's known for kindness, compassion, and fostering connections. Lacey played a key role in the City of Beverly's Lynch Park Resiliency Workshop by leading the deployment of an educational installation, demonstrating the park's vulnerability to climate change. The installation, viewed by hundreds, helped raise awareness about rising seas and stronger storms. Lacey, thank you very much and congratulations. And Angel Turner. Just want to make sure I said that right. All right. So Angel Turner, originally from Russia and of Roma ethnicity, was adopted at 3 years old and moved to Beverly, Massachusetts. Adjusting to life in America was challenging due to limited knowledge about his past. At a young age, he would cover himself with a blanket and he growled to keep people away. He relied on interpreting facial expressions due to not speaking English, but his attempts at communication were often misunderstood. And this is, you wrote this in the first person, causing me to feel isolated and cry. In January 2023, Angel enrolled at North Shore Recovery High School after experiencing bullying at 2 other schools. He overcame childhood bullying. He found support in the Recovery High School community. Angel expresses his experiences through poetry, having written many poems. The Boy Winter, that's one of your poems? Angel is a valuable member of the Recovery High School community, providing support and guidance to peers. He excels academically and aims to study psychology in college to help youth facing substance abuse and sexual orientation issues. Angel's goal is to inspire others to find inner peace. Angel, thank you so very much. Wow, Madam President. Some impressive young people. Thank you again to the Youth Collaborative for having brought this program back. And it's clear that we have so many talented young people in this community. I'll turn it over to you, and thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think let's give it. Well, thank you very much to the Youth Collaborative Board. Thank you, Councilor Rotundo, Mayor, Mr. Flaherty, and a really big thanks to all of the young people who are honored today for sharing so much of yourselves with your community, with your school communities, and with your wider community. Thank you to everybody who's here supporting these young people today. It's, as I said, it's really nice to have a full chamber, and it's clear that there's friends and family and teachers and all kinds of other adults perhaps who have mentored and cared for these young people. So thank you. All of those things matter so profoundly, and we're honored, the council's honored to have you all as our guests this evening. As the mayor alluded to, we do like to take a recess after special events like this so that if you, your families, your friends want to have a chance to take some pictures, get up front here and take pictures, you can do that. And so councilors, I would entertain a motion. We have a 7:30 hearing, but let's do a motion for a 10-minute recess to take us up to that time. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. We'll take a 10-minute recess for pictures and congratulations, and we'll be back. Thank you. Freddie Kim? All right. Hi, everyone. Hello. Thank you. I'm going to call the full council back to order. Thank you, and thank you again to all of the exemplary young people who are here this evening with us. Thank you to their families, friends, teachers, mentors, support networks. What an exciting way to start our meeting, and what a joyful way to start the meeting. So thank you, everyone, and thanks again to Tim Flaherty, to the Youth Collaborative Board, Councilor Rotundo, Mayor Cahill. Thanks to that whole team of you for making that happen and bringing those awards back. We do have, as I mentioned, a 7:30 public hearing, and we have public hearings sort of rolling right into each other. And so we'll start right off with this one. This is a 7:30 hearing. I will officially open on Order 179. Ms. Kent.
Order 179, ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, June 17, 2024 at 7:30 PM at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, Council Chambers, relative to National Grid Plan 30787704 Cabot Street. And this was in the newspaper June 7th.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. I see one of our National Grid representatives is here, so if you'd like to start at the podium with your name and then anything you'd like to share with us about this plan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Kazadi, and I'm representing National Grid at 44 River Street in Beverly. And for this job, we are petitioning to install conduits on Cabot Street from an existing manhole down the sidewalk about 60 feet to the property of 103 Cabot Street.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kazadi. I should have mentioned members of the public who are interested in speaking in this or any other public hearings. Sign-up sheets are on the table by the window by that door, and we will take public speakers for this one momentarily if there are any signed up in the order that they are signed up. Councilors, are there any questions or comments? Councilor Spang.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. Through you, Madam President, I had one question about how long you think this work would take, and then also the plans. It looks like it's all going to go through the sidewalk. So are you coordinating with some of the work that's already happened through the gas main replacement on Cabot Street?
No, I don't think we're coordinating with the gas, but this should take, I'll say max a week. It shouldn't take more than a week to do this job.
Okay. Oh, so it would take more than a day then? So you
Yeah,
think it would take about a week to do that?
I'll say so, yeah.
Yes, so there has been a lot of construction on Cabot Street. So you may want to coordinate and make sure that you're not interrupting construction that is also happening. There's also construction that's going to be crossing Cabot Street here at City Hall for the transmission line. So there have been a lot of projects active on Cabot Street. So if they can have that in mind, and I'm sure they'll coordinate with our engineering department too, but it's been an impactful neighborhood to live and work in with a lot of disruptions. Thanks.
Well stated, Councilor Spang. Thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Councilor Hausman. Oh, your microphone. Your microphone, Councilor.
Through you, Madam President.
Thank you.
How deep down under the sidewalk is the conduit get laid?
It's usually 24 to 36 inches deep.
2 to 3 feet?
Yeah.
And does the conduit get then encased in
Concrete?
In concrete? Or
Yes.
It does. So wire, piping, and then concrete on top of it?
Correct, yep.
Okay. And does the resurfacing of the sidewalk after you've done all the work underground, that gets taken care of by National Grid, not by the city's DPS?
Yes,
correct?
by National Grid, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. Just in addition to the length of time the work will take, was wondering if you had an estimate of when the work will take place and how to minimize the impact on businesses and residents with that scheduling?
I don't have an exact time on when I think it's gonna happen, but it's usually when the customer signs our agreement and pays the bill. And then from there on, I'd say it takes about like a month for us to start construction.
if I may. So to follow up, is this a new service installation? I don't think there was a purpose given on the description.
Yeah, it's for the new house being built on 103 Cabot. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselors, any other questions or comments for Mr. Kazadi? Were there any members of the public who wish to speak in this public hearing? There were none on the sign-up sheet, but I'm just double checking. All right, thank you. Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and refer it back to the Committee on Public Services for further action this evening. We do have 5 minutes before we get to our next posted hearing, so let's go to some routine business to work through. We have acceptance of minutes of previous meetings. We have 3 sets of meeting minutes that we can approve tonight, counselors. Those are from our regular city council meeting, May 6th, 2024, regular city council meeting, May 20th, 2024, and regular city council meeting from June 3rd, 2024. Is there a motion to approve these 3 sets of minutes? All those in favor? That carries 9-0, and those are approved with our thanks to Assistant Clerk Christine Dixon, as always, for her excellent work on our minutes. It's much appreciated. Ms. Kent, let's go to communications from His Honor the Mayor.
Order number 183, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $1,455,000 grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Clean School Bus Program to purchase 8 electric school buses for the Beverly Public School District. The program helps school districts across the United States to replace diesel school buses with cleaner electrical models. The transition of the school bus fleet to all electric will help mitigate the effects of climate change and reduce air pollution exposure to our school children. Beverly is one of the 17 school districts in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to be awarded funding. The Clean School Bus Program was created by the Biden-Harris administration bipartisan infrastructure law in 2021. The EPA awarded $900 million to 530 recipients to purchase 3,400 clean school buses in the United States. The most recent funding represents the 3rd round of $5 billion that EPA will disperse over a 5-year period. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before the earmark can be granted. I don't think that's right. Before the grant can be granted. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on the matter at your upcoming meeting. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Thanks for catching that at the end there. That's going to be referred to the Subcommittee on Finance and Property, and I'm remiss in not noting, since this is a grant, that our City Grants Director, Catherine Barrett, is here with us as well. Thank you, Ms. Barrett.
Order 184, dear Honorable City Council, I hereby appoint, subject to your review and recommendation, Mr. Braden Willenbrook, 5 Clifford Avenue, to serve on the Human Rights Committee. His term is to be effective until April 4th, 2027. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 185, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a Student Awareness of Fire Education $7,200 grant and a Senior Safe Grant for $2,600 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. This important grant funding will be used by the Beverly Fire Department to teach fire and life safety to children in schools. The program teaches students to recognize the dangers of fire and fire hazards of tobacco products through 23 key fire safety behaviors taught in the developmental appropriate ways. In addition, grant funding will be used for the Senior Safe Program, which aims to reduce older adult fire deaths through fire and life safety education. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both city and mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on your meeting. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you. Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property. And that brings us to 7:40, so we will go back to our second posted public hearing. This is a public hearing posted for 7:40 p.m. on Order 165. Ms. Kent.
Order number 165, the City of Beverly ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, June 17, 2024 at 7:40 p.m. at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, Council Chambers, relative to a transfer request of $2 million from the city's certified free cash balance to be placed into the city's road and sidewalk capital fund. And this was in the newspaper on June 7th.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. So our City Finance Director, Mr. Brian Ailes, also here with us this evening, as well as our City Council Budget Analyst, Jerry Perry. Thank you both. Mr. Ailes, we'll turn it over to you to get started on this one.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good evening, councilors. Before you this evening, should be no surprise, this was mentioned when we submitted the budget message a couple weeks ago. Our strategy this year is to utilize some free cash balance to add an additional transfer of this $2 million over to the Road and Sidewalk Capital Fund for use during FY 25's repaving plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions that might be specific about that, but just note that this $2 million, along with the $1.25 million that's presented in the budget, would, if both approved, allow for $3.25 million in available city funds for paving next year, and that's in addition to the Chapter 90 funds that are available as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ailes. Before I open it up for questions or comments, I'll just remind all of us that if there are members of the public who are here or watching on BevCam for an upcoming hearing and you wish to speak in one of the public hearings, all of the sign-up sheets are on the table where Ms. Kent is currently walking, and you can sign up there and we'll take public speakers in each hearing on those topics in the order that they are signed up. Are there questions or comments for Mr. Ailes on this one? Councillor St. Hilaire, and then Councillor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess I was just curious, Mr. Ailes, is this the approach we can expect to see on the roads and sidewalks moving forward? I think many of us have talked about this as a priority area, road and sidewalks, and the need to do more. And for me, I know I've been critical of not having this money in the operating budget as a priority. I understand where we are for this year. Is this what we can expect moving forward, and at what level of funding?
Yeah, I think, as a general rule, we try to put what we can into roads and sidewalks, whether that's through the operating budget, whether that's through available free cash. This year in particular, we have an anticipated replenishment amount that allows us the benefit of this $2 million being able to be transferred in and help to alleviate some of that budgetary pressure that would exist even beyond what we're seeing now if we were to continue to maintain a budget line within the budget for the roads and sidewalks in excess of the 1.25 that's in there now. So I think in the immediate future, Councillor, you can expect to see the continued approach of a combination. We will certainly strive to maintain that budget line within the operating budget each year, but as additional pressures might warrant, we may need to kind of ebb and flow that budget line in the next few years to allow for capacity in other areas. We do anticipate not only this year, being FY25, the coming year, utilizing free cash for this, but we would also expect to utilize a similar strategy next year and seek some free cash as well.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councillor St. Hilaire. Councillor Sweeney. That microphone just really does not want to
Microphone,
cooperate.
Councillor Houseman. Thank you, Madam President. And just building off of Councillor St. Hilaire's comments, I certainly understand the approach the administration has taken here. That whether it's operating budget funding or a combination of operating and free cash, as you've employed in this proposal, that the administration has maintained a commitment to putting funding into the road and sidewalk budget. For me, that's certainly a priority, and I would hope, and as you've indicated, Mr. Ailes, that if we are to do this split of free cash and operating budget, that level is maintained over future fiscal years. And with that in mind, I actually have a question for you, Mr. Perry. If we are to try a similar amount of free cash next year, assuming the operating budget appropriation stays the same toward road and sidewalk, we need about another $2 million plus. Obviously, the what we can appropriate, but with that in mind, in the memo you put before the council, you noted that our certified free cash FY24 was just under 11.4 million. You are projecting that number to be about 8.7 million in FY25. That obviously concerned me, that discrepancy, and given that we've relied on free cash for some pretty significant investments in FY24, including roads and sidewalks, if we approve this transfer, I would assume that we would need to make similar investments with this funding in FY25 and have less money available to do so. So my question is essentially twofold. One, is this a more conservative estimate, and maybe we'll see a number that's greater than this amount based on what we've estimated and received in, actually received in years past? And then the larger question, does this concern you that we're looking at potentially a $3+ million discrepancy, about a $3 million discrepancy between the 24 certified amount and what you're projecting for 25 in terms of free cash?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. So I guess I'll answer those questions with your permission, and then I'll make a few comments, and then obviously you'll entertain other people. To answer your question specifically, Councilor, yeah, it is a conservative estimate. I have consulted with both Mr. Eales and Mr. Chiani about this. We're seeing robust revenues coming in on local receipts at the end of the fiscal year. I wrote to you in April. It was looking pretty good at then. I think it's even looking better than that. So, yeah, you can never guarantee anything here, but I am optimistic at the 8.6, and it could go even higher than that, yes. So this is a conservative estimate. The drop of $3 million, it doesn't concern me, no. But I do caution you, we've been pretty creative in my tenure here. It will get more difficult, in my view, going forward for large-scale projects. I've already indicated to you already, I'm comfortable. I see a pathway, even with these estimates for both City Hall and the McPherson Youth Center. I can see that happening. I'm really comfortable with that. I'm not so sure we could do anything beyond that on a large scale, you know, like the library as an example. So I'm not concerned. I think we're on a good path. I'm comfortable with, you know, the projections that Mr. Eales is coming out with. And so, yeah, I purposely put that because not only are you going to do this transfer, you get the next transfer on debt stabilization. With regard to this specific one, I do recommend you do this. I would add to Mr. Ailes' comment that he made, and he's correct, there's $2 million here, and there's God bless you, $1,250,000 in the operating budget. Chapter 90 comes in a little over $1 million, so that gets us $4.25. But we also, to refresh your memory, also transferred during this fiscal year from free cash the $750,000 on top of this. So certainly in this is my 8th budget here. This is the biggest commitment to roads and sidewalks since I've been with you all. And, you know, I think the administration is listening to you all about how important that is to everybody. So this is about as good as it's going to get, I think. And I'm pretty comfortable with the free cash position. Bottom line to it, I do recommend adoption of the mayor's proposal.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Perry.
I think Mr. Ailes wants back.
Mr. Ailes.
I know.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Madam President, do you mind if I just add a perspective to that question? Because it is a great question, and it's something we monitor very closely on a regular basis. Free cash balances, year over year, they don't grow year over year over year over year indefinitely, right? Some years they're going to come down, some years they're going to come up. So what we really try to do is to balance that over time. And what would be concerning, this is not concerning, but what would be concerning is if you have multiple years in a row where you can continue to see that balance erode to a point where it starts rubbing up against the range of our policy, right? Our policy is 3 to 8% of the budget to be certified every year. What we're expecting the level to be certified at the end of this fiscal year falls just slightly above the midway point of that range. So we're right in the target area. The 11 million was actually on the higher end of where we would typically like to see. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Councillor Bowen.
Thank you. I think 2 questions. One that just follows on the last question. As you look at the 750,000 or so in turnbacks expected from departments this year and 4 million or so in positive revenue variance, were there any indications of areas within the budget that there is space in future years to build back in the roads and sidewalks line, anywhere where we're consistently underspending? That would make that possible to have it sort of built back in a regular way?
Mr. Ailes, before you answer, I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping on the 750 hearing, if that's okay. So we'll pause this one. We'll open that posted 750 hearing on Order 164, and then I'll take a motion to recess that one. But Ms. Kent.
Order 164, City of Beverly, ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, June 17th at 7:50 PM at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, council chambers, relative to a transfer request of $1 million from the city's certified free cash balance to be placed in the city's debt stabilization fund. And this was in the newspaper June 7th.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to recess that one to 7:55. All those in favor? Thank you. So we'll recess 164's public hearing to 7:55, and we'll pick back up with the hearing on 165, and with your answer to Councilor Bowen's question, Mr. Ailes. Thank you.
So there's a couple things at play when we look at turnbacks. Some of it can be related to previous year purchase orders that maybe didn't materialize to the level a particular department had thought at the time. And so those will fall to free cash. And then in the instance where we've got multiple years of underspending that would be a turnback, those are the areas we tend to focus on when we build the annual budget, right? So this year particularly, when we started the budget process for FY25, we were so far out of balance out of the gate that was kind of step one of what we did. So we like to think that we've identified the larger items that are contributing to this. And the goal is to not have recurring money just turning back, because you don't want it appropriated and just sitting there. You want it, being utilized. So the goal is always to be able to put additional money into roads and sidewalks. That's one of our goals. So to the extent we're able to identify those areas and check them as, yes, this is available, yeah, that is something we would look to do in the future.
Yes.
Thank you. And yes, my other question is just that I really appreciate the additional discussions we've had about which road and sidewalk work we can expect at different levels of funding, and starting to get the look aheads at work that's coming up, which roads are sort of on the short, medium, long-term list for work. So I was just hoping to get the sort of high-level snapshot version of, if we approve the free cash transfer and have the full set of funding heading into this next fiscal year, what does that enable in terms of road and sidewalk work that would not happen if we did not approve the free cash transfer and had just the operating budget, in terms of, like, is it one road, is it three roads?
Yeah,
I think
so
we have
I'll-
some sense, but important to say at this time.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. And I may look to our city engineer for specifics if we get into it, but in general, that multi-year plan that you've all seen and kind of worked through with us, that makes assumptions in it, right? The main assumption in that is that there's $2 million a year in city cash going into the pool in addition to Chapter 90, right? So if we didn't transfer this money, all that would be left in terms of a transfer into that kind of plan is the 1.25 that's in the budget, okay? So we would fall short of the plan that we have reviewed with you all to support the work in your individual wards. That aside, the plan called for a $2 million annual contribution. This would be $3.25 million. So that's an extra $1.25 million that isn't right now programmed. So what that can do is that can allow us to pull forward some of the later projects if they're shovel ready at the time. But keep in mind, you all know this, there's preliminary work that always needs to get done before we really tackle the road paving project. The paving is the last piece of the project typically. There's utility work, there's water work sometimes, sewer work sometimes. We coordinate with the utility companies to make sure that we're not opening up roads right after we pave them, right? So there is some planning that we kind of can't avoid in those timeframes, but it will allow us to pull forward maybe some small, less complicated projects, excuse me, or it may also allow for some programming of an additional road or two or three potentially, okay? Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Mr. Ailes. Any other questions or comments from members of the council? There are no members of the public on our Senate sheet. Was anyone here hoping to speak in this? Okay, seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and refer that back to the Committee on Finance and Property for further action this evening. And that takes us right to 7:55, which was the time we had recessed the public hearing on Order 164 until. So we'll reopen that public hearing on 164. Ms. Kent has already read that order. Mr. Ailes, we'll welcome you right back up here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll sit close. So this is an additional transfer from free cash, and as you know, this time of year is when we look closely and have a lot of certainty around turnbacks, around revenue variances. So this is when the point in time where we're comfortable getting to a certain level with our free cash balance. One thing that we're proposing, this order in front of you this evening, is something you probably haven't seen from us before, but it's in light of some of the work we're doing with long-term budget planning. Particularly some of the pressures that we're seeing in this year's budget that we know will carry multiple years, some collective bargaining obligations that we know will play out over the next few years. And in an effort to maintain the city's ability to service debt and continue to do large-scale capital projects, we are recommending this transfer of $1 million into the debt stabilization fund to help buffer what could be potential pressure on the debt budget, and we see that pressure coming in FY27 and potentially FY28. So it can be used, if it's approved this evening, it can be used in a couple different ways. It can be used as a cash payment to avoid debt issuance on a project, or it can be used as a tool to service debt payment. So either way, it can help alleviate potential budgetary pressure. When we forecasted the FY25 budget that's before you now, a separate order, we know that the debt budget will remain fairly flat in terms of dollars, FY25 and FY26. In FY27 is when you will start to see the debt roll on from some of the larger projects, particularly the major one is the City Hall renovation project. And so in order to be prepared and have a contingency plan in place, we're looking to transfer this $1 million into the debt stabilization fund. There's $1 million in there currently, so it would grow to $2 million, and then that would then be available to help buffer that pressure that we see coming in FY27. It's a very responsible method, and it doesn't have to be used that way. It's somewhat of a contingency plan. If the budgetary pressures continue to mount, it basically preserves the city's ability to continue to do capital planning and capital projects, right? So it's a very safe way of ensuring that capacity going forward. If there is an event that, it's not needed, we can also repurpose it at any point with council's approval. So it's not lost once it's over there. It's just set aside for that particular purpose until the council deems something, right? They can release it, right, Jerry? Into general fund, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ailes. And maybe before we open up, Mr. Perry, I'll invite you to, I'm sure if we don't have you come now, folks will have questions for you. So
Sure.
why don't we just cut right to it?
I'll try to be a lot briefer. I think this is a really smart decision of the mayor and Mr. Ailes, and I strongly recommend you adopt it. As you know, we're going to have some budget pressures over the next several years. I really like this idea. Really strongly support it. You do have control of it. Once it's in there, they can't spend it without your approval. They've changed the rules in this, so it's a majority vote because it's a special stabilization fund. We will be looking at the City Hall project, and bottom line to it, I think it's a really smart idea. And as I wrote to you, two things. One, you can see I'm comfortable with it from a free cash perspective. And number two, this is part of that pathway I've indicated where I think we can still do the City Hall and McPherson Youth Center, and this is part of that process. So my recommendation is that you adopt this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry. Are there questions or comments, councilors, for Mr. Ailes or Mr. Perry? Councilor Spang.
Mine's more of a procedural question, and I'm not sure who it would go to. But am I correct that it's just a majority vote to appropriate funds into the debt stabilization fund, but we would need a 2/3 to appropriate them back out later?
No, that's a great question. No, it's majority in, majority out on special stabilization funds. The general stabilization fund requires a 2/3 vote to get it out of there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Great question. Councilor Spang? Other questions? Councilor St. Hilaire, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a quick question for Mr. Ailes. Is there an intended usage for this $1 million?
Mr. Ailes, thank you.
I mean, we certainly have our eyes on the City Hall project as creating some of that budgetary pressure, a part of what's creating the budgetary pressure. So we don't want to lose the ability to move forward with that project if the council deems that it's an appropriate project. So that would likely be the intended use at some point. If it's determined that it's not needed and we can handle the debt service budgetarily through the general operating budget, we would likely look collectively to say, what, in that case, do we want to do with this money? Do we want to return it to the general fund, or are there other projects that are backed up behind this that would be a worthy recipient of the stabilization funds?
So just to follow up, I guess, curious about the timing. So why do this now if you don't really know, and why not just come to us with a funding request when you know what you need?
Yeah, if I could just refresh your memory, free cash expires on June 30th, and as of July 1, there'll be nothing left. We have to wait till 6 or 8 months down the road. So this is traditionally, if we're going to do this stuff, not only just here, but in most communities, they do it this time of the year. So this is very normal practice, and that simply put, June 30th, if we don't do it by then, we can't. We don't do it tonight, we're not going to do it at all. So again, I'd advise you to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Other questions from members of the council? Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. So, heard about the debt stabilization fund most recently in discussions about the library HVAC proposal, where in that discussion, I think the framing was a little different of we had $1 million sitting in the debt stabilization fund that had not in many years been tapped, and there was a proposal that be part of the means of making the library overall renovation project possible alongside the other major capital projects coming down the line. We have not moved that money, so that $1 million is still there. So just wanted to get a little more sort of discussion about the thinking of adding to that fund, that while we certainly can reallocate back towards any other purpose at some point, the most recent experience of that was that didn't happen. It's just sort of stayed there. So that $1 million has been locked up, and this would be adding an additional $1 million to make that a $2 million fund. So is the thinking that we're potentially shifting more projects, more capital projects that we would otherwise fund through free cash with borrowing in the future, and want to ensure that we have that capacity, or just sort of what is the benefit of, I think sort of builds on Councilor St. Hilaire's question, but having even more in the debt stabilization fund now and not moving other projects forward with this funding now or in 6 months when free cash is certified?
Yeah. So you're right to think of this request in conjunction with everything else we're dealing with right now. The FY25 budget, the different pressures we've been talking about, the different types of things that we're trying to do to maintain the financial stability of the city over the long term, right? It's not about the immediate year. It's not about the immediate 2 years. It's beyond that. So as we do things like reducing down the road and sidewalk budget in the operating budget and shifting the demand for that money over to free cash, as we raise certain revenue projections tighter to the margins, that ensures less money going back into free cash. So there's this competing demand for the free cash capacity, which we've historically relied on to support some of the larger projects. We did it with the police station, we did it with the middle school, we requested to do it with the library HVAC. It's a strategy that we've employed. But my real concern is that with everything that's still unknown, that's out there, the economy being one of those big items, we need to make sure that we're still able to continue with these projects. And if everything's competing for free cash, and we don't know what the economy's doing, if the demand gets too much on that, then that capacity to ensure that capital projects continue to go forward is gone. And we're stuck looking at each other going, now what do we do? So this is a way to just ensure that we're able to continue down a path of continuing to rehabilitate the city's infrastructure, its buildings, and its larger capital projects that we need. But it does very much have to do with the budget and with the demands on capital, free cash, like you mentioned. So it's very good question. Did that answer it? Is there more that maybe I missed?
If I may. No, I think that does answer it. I think my face reacting instead of my voice is just that, that I think we have to think about when those decisions get made. And we've collectively as a council, I think, struggled with the sort of appropriating funds now for projects we're not going to see or that we anticipate seeing and don't end up seeing for quite a while. So it's a tough trade-off in many ways. And when we're talking about capital investments, we make those decisions over time and we try and spread the burden out over time. So communities use debt because a decision we make today benefits community members well into the future, and we pay some of that now and we continue paying for the things that we benefit from that folks decided on 20 years ago. And there is that smoothing that's intentional. Yep. The more that we take current tax dollars while people are still hurting to fund those future projects, I just want to know that we're really thinking through that smoothing over time carefully, and not continuing to sort of stash money away so that future debt payments are lower if we're not even sure what those projects are going to be or when they're going to happen.
Yeah, I think that, thank you for the follow-up, Counselor. That's exactly what we're trying to do, is to do that smoothing. And we know that, the issues that are before the council tend to be more immediate, right? You're dealing with the FY25 budget. That's a 12-month period. That's where we're looking. But for those that have served on the Financial Forecast Committee, for those that really kind of scrutinize every recommendation and every decision financially to understand what the implications are multiple years down the road, we're here saying that this is the decision that the city should be making to ensure that that capacity remains. We're going to be faced with some difficult decisions in the next month, really, and we need to make sure that regardless of what decisions get made, that the city's still able to continue to do what it needs to do to deliver services and infrastructure and support to the citizens and the residents of Beverly. So it is about smoothing.
Let's go to Councilor St. Hilaire. I saw your hand.
Yeah, I guess just to echo Councilor Bowen, so essentially it seems like what we're being asked for is a temporary, give us access to this capital until the free cash is certified. Is that right? I mean, is that a way to think about it?
Think of it as a safety net, so that 2-3 years down the road, where we know there's going to be a budgetary pinch. Right? It's no secret. FY27 is going to be a tough year. We don't want to have to stop a project that maybe the council approves. Now, I understand you haven't weighed in and we haven't presented a request for approval for the City Hall project, so that's still up in the air. But if it's not the City Hall project, it's the projects behind it. It's the school roofs that are coming due. It's the HVAC systems that relate to some of the schools that need work. It's there's a laundry list. You guys all get the capital expenditure plan every year. So it's really just about not being able to lose ground when we try to peck away at that list of capital infrastructure projects that we're trying to repair and replace.
Mr. Perry.
Yeah, I was going to get up. He beat me to the gun a little bit on the school roofs. Look at the capital expenditure report that you all have. we get some serious challenges coming up here. None of the school roofs, I remind you of our exercise at the library. We started at, what, 3.7 million, and it went up to 18 million. So capital projects are getting more and more expensive, and they're going to get nothing but more. I spent some time in the last month researching the future and talking with architects and things of that nature, and these expenditures are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger here. So putting this money aside is still under your control. You decide whether to spend it or not. He's just parking the money for a period of time. But I can envision in my mind this going more towards the school roofs. I can see it going in that direction. It's just my gut instincts. But the bottom line to it, as your budget analyst, this is a smart decision. And I don't always agree with everything the mayor does here, but on this one, I think it's the right move and in order to maintain capital projects going forward.
I see some hands. Before we go to those, a little bit of housekeeping. We need to pause this hearing, open the posted public hearing on Order 176. That's posted for 8:10. I'll take a motion to recess in a moment. Ms. Kent.
Order 176, order that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, June 17th, 8:10 p.m. at 191 Cabot Street, relative to the Community Preservation Committee's 11th round CPA project funding recommendations. This was in the newspaper on June 7th.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. I'd entertain a motion to recess that public hearing to 8:15. All those in favor? That's 9-0. We'll recess that public hearing on Order 176 to 8:15, and we'll resume conversation on the public hearing on Order 164. Councillor St. Hilaire.
Yeah, just quickly to respond, I guess I still don't, I guess I still err on the side of Councillor Bowen, which is I'd rather know what the projects are for that we're funding and authorizing funding for before I say transfer the money. But I'll let others weigh in.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sweeney.
Be fixed at some point. Thank you, Madam President. Just quickly to put some comments out there, I think this is a wise transfer, and I support the transfer. To the points raised by Councilor Bowen and Councilor Hilaire, the free cash balance is one that is money that the city has already taxed and has brought in and hasn't spent for the most part. So I see it as we could either, and I think it's wise to invest this money because realistically, especially with the transfer that we are likely to approve, the $2 million in road and sidewalk, that's a commitment that we're going to make every fiscal year to put $2 million plus of free cash toward road and sidewalks unless we raise the operating budget back up. And given some of the budget pressures that Mr. Ailes has alluded to, I doubt that we will be able to restore that operating budget to the level that we had seen in previous fiscal years. And so I think it's wise, knowing that regardless of whether the council approves some of these projects that we're discussing, we at least have the ability to put money towards some of the larger capital projects that's set aside in a specific fund to supplement what we need to borrow for these projects. And so with that, I do have a question for you, Mr. Ailes, though, just to make sure that I fully understand the administration's intent, so to speak, in transferring this funding. Would the plan be to utilize this money in, whether it's the school roofs or the city hall renovation, whatever the project might be, to pay down principal before we need to borrow? Or would there be a scenario where this money is used to supplement the $9 million or so debt service budget? Because that's where I'd be a little more concerned if we were looking to drain this to add on to that recurring annual debt service payment that the city makes.
Yeah, I agree with your perspective on that. I mean, it's a finite source. So depending upon how much you're looking to offset the budget pressure, if you're drawing, let's say, $100,000 a year over 10 years, maybe something like that might work from a model perspective. But generally, we would probably look to pay down the initial borrowing out of the gate to maintain a lower budget level of debt service.
Okay, and I support that approach. I'd be concerned if we were looking to use this to supplement the debt service budget, but I think, as you mentioned, the approach the city's taken to previous projects has helped us financially.
I will say, though, it's going to be a unique situation, whatever the situation is. So we'll look at all the options and work with your budget analyst and you all to make sure that the approach that we would recommend, if we end up recommending a certain approach, is the most logical, most advantageous one for the taxpayers in the long run.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ailes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. I need to just reopen the public hearing on Order 176 briefly. I've been doing well guessing these. Let's entertain a motion, please, to recess to 8:20 and see how we go.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and I feel optimistic we can do it. Counselor Houseman.
Thank you, Madam President.
Oh, sorry, we're returning to 164. Counselor Houseman.
Thank you. Yeah, I sort of want to step back for a minute and think about this in the context of strategic planning for the city finances. You know, the financial policies and objectives that were adopted were to try to structure a framework around which the city could move forward to make sure that fiscally we had both stability and resilience and allow us to plan for the future. The projects that we were able to accomplish with the police station and with the middle school only really were possible because we were smart about how strategically we went about providing for the capacity to carry debt. And I would say that just as we have always a concern and an obligation to do as much as we can with roads and sidewalks, so too do we have an obligation to make sure we can carry forward strategically on our capital expenditure projects and our larger facilities. It may sound odd coming from me, having over and over again banged the drum of, I want to know where our money has gone on these projects, and I want to know, 3 months forward, 3 months back, what's happened. But I am willing, based upon what I've seen so far, that the administration, through its engineering department, really, they may not be entirely there, but the mayor has made a clear, firm public commitment and started to deliver on providing regular reports to the council on projects and how they're going. I think the proof is in the pudding. We still have to sort of see exactly how this is going to roll out, but I think they've made a clear good faith effort to move forward on that. So I really see this as sort of long-term strategic financial planning that gives us the capacity to move forward on some of our larger projects, which one way or another, I think we can all agree, we want to see move forward regardless of what that project necessarily specifically is. And as has been pointed out, we have the authority and the right to approve them as we go along. So like Councilor Sweeney, I think this is a wise financial decision, and I support it.
Thank you, Counselor. Are there other questions, knowing that when we take a vote, councilors can also offer any other input or opinions? Are there any other questions that we have not gotten to ask in this one? Were there members of the public who wish to speak in this public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and refer that back to the Committee on Finance and Property for further action this evening. Thank you. All right, I was better guessing that time. We will resume the public hearing on Order 176. Ms. Kent has read this order. This is on the CPC's 11th round CPA project funding recommendations. I do see that Chair of the CPC, Mr. Derek Beckwith, is here and already moving towards the podium. Very well done, Mr. Beckwith. So I'll turn it over to you to open things up, if you don't mind. And I do know some other members of your committee are here. I'll let you introduce them if you'd like as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam President and councilors. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about our recommendations for funding round 11 of the Community Preservation Act activities here. And I'm looking around, our newest member of the CPC, Jamie Jameson, is here. It's a pleasure to have her on the committee. I think 2 meetings so far. that's fresh, and I'm looking for other members. We could be flying by ourselves tonight, Jamie. So
Thank you both for being here, and thank you, Ms. Jamison, for stepping onto the committee.
I'd also like to just make note of the fact that Jean Delios is, here she is. She's the new part-time CPA administrator for the committee, working with the committee, which is going to be very helpful to us as we work to help manage and make sure projects are moving forward, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a lengthy letter with attachments that we sent to you. Don't know whether or not you had a chance to read it in full detail. I'm happy to read it, but I think maybe I'll just hit the highlights here. And we had 6 projects come before us to file, applicants to come before us with full applications this year. And we funded all 6 of them. 4 in the area of community housing, 1 in the area of recreation, and the other in historic resources. I'm happy to give some quick highlights on the individual projects themselves. The total amount of funding that we're recommending for approval by you is $538,270. Which seems a little bit lower than what we come with every year in terms of requests or recommendations. But of note, we did just have the $450,000 out-of-cycle project that you confirmed the appropriation for that we passed in December and you in January. So, you know, that together puts us over $1 million in this 12-month period. And we also expect some some out-of-cycle projects to come forward. Of note today, we have the $60,000 grant to the Beverly Affordable Housing Trust. You notice that housing is quite a theme for us and will continue to be. And we heard that during our public hearing or our public meeting this fall from residents that community housing really was the #1 thing we heard about. And with that assistance to the Affordable Housing Trust, it's meant to help them in the activities. There are many projects that the state funds, you know, Harbor Light projects, the YMCA, et cetera. Looking for state funding, these projects are evaluated in part by whether they have multiple areas of support from local communities. So both the CPC, which has been the primary funder, but also the Affordable Housing Trust plays a role in that. And it's often more a formula than it is the amount of money. So part of the $60,000, no set denomination, is to make it possible for the Affordable Housing Trust to participate in those projects when they come before the trust for assistance, and also to perhaps do some other projects, what we have termed out of the box, but individual, more creative, smaller projects, all aimed at helping make Beverly as affordable as possible. We also have the Recreation Department and support for $250,000 for their basically a complete overhaul of Holcroft Park, which is an exciting project for that neighborhood certainly and for the city overall. We have the Essex County Habitat for Humanity came before us. This is a new project for us and a new approach for a critical repair program that they have in place to help people who are below the income that meet affordable housing, affordability income guidelines. And so their project is in place in other areas in the region, and this would bring that program here to Beverly for critical home repair, primarily looking at the population that it may end up being for seniors who are in their home and can't afford serious repairs that need to be done to help with the safety of their homes, roof, the walls, the doors, the foundations. These things can be extremely expensive. So this program is a new one for us. So we'll be working with them on that if you approve. And then the Girdler House on Lothrop Street. Many of you are familiar with the Girdler House, I'm sure, often known as the Old Ladies' Home, which we at the committee, were more formal in our discussions on that. But for 140 years, this nonprofit has been enabling elderly women who are at moderate to low income levels a place to be able to live in the city. And so they had 3 specific projects that they've asked for assistance with. One for a generator, another for kitchen repairs and remodeling that had to happen, in part because of our own city inspectors who were asking for an upgrade of appliances and things like that, but also that impacted space for storage of food and all that sort of stuff, and also window repair. And the Girdler House is also, the Historic District Commission has recognized it as a significant building and location in the city, so that helps support all of the different projects. That wraps up the presentation. I can go into budget if you have any questions or any other requests.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beckwith. And I noticed me noticing the time. You're doing fine. It's just my job to make sure I keep track of the last one, but you're fine.
Okay.
So counselors, are there questions or comments for Mr. Beckwith while he's here? Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. A brief comment that would have been a question, but you covered it thoroughly in your presentation. So just wanted to thank you for the work of the committee and the recommendations. I think they're all worthy of funding. And the question I was going to ask was about the funding for the Affordable Housing Trust. We've had a few discussions recently as a council about sort of what the trust is doing, where funding is coming in from and going out to. So that was really helpful to hear a summary.
Thanks. Thank you, Counselor. Other questions or comments from members of the council? Counselor Houseman.
I just won't belabor the point. I just want to thank you and your committee for all the great work you do. It's committees like yours and the members in it who really make Beverly special in terms of making us a welcoming city that serves all of our residents. So thank you for your work.
Well, thank you very much, Councilor. I think I speak for every member of the committee to say that we love being on the committee. We love the opportunity to work on so many different projects and to actually recommend funding, which is pretty cool. So.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions from counselors? Were there members of the public who wish to speak in this public hearing on this 11th round recommended funding for the CPC? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and refer that back to the Committee on Finance and Property for further action this evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Beckwith.
Thank you.
I'll echo other counselors' observation that your committee's work, but also your committee's report to us made this a pretty easy one. You answered a lot of questions before we even had them, so I appreciate that very much. Yes, sorry, Ms. Ken, I had a little bit of I glitched. It's 8:30, so we will open the public hearing on Order 181.
Order number 181, the City of Beverly ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, June 17th at 8:30 p.m. at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, Council Chambers, relative to a request for an appropriation of $45,000 transferred from the Airport Enterprise Fund for professional services related to Massachusetts Contingency Plan support for petroleum hydrocarbon release at the Beverly Regional Airport. And this is in the news on June 7th.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. I see that our airport manager, Gabe Hannafin, is here with us. Thank you, Mr. Hannafin. I'll turn it over to you to start things off, and we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, councilors. So as you guys might be aware, for the past several years, we've had our LSP GZA environmental out at the airport tracking an area of petroleum release that was detected in groundwater supply at the airport. Through their digging of wells, they found that plume of contaminated groundwater has slowly been creeping down gradient. It's now getting close to one of the flight schools on the field, so they have proposed this contract addendum to do further testing of and drilling of new wells to try to define the exact bounds of where this contaminated groundwater plume is. Under the Massachusetts contingency plan, before we can move forward with any sort of mitigation response for this contamination, we have to first have a well-defined area of where that contaminant is. And since we suspect that this is continuing to move, we don't have a defined area yet. So these funds from the enterprise fund into our environmental project fund would be used to fund the further well drilling to try to nail down exactly the bounds of this groundwater plume that's contaminated with this petroleum release.
Thank you, Mr. Hannafin.
Thanks.
Councillor Feldman. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So my question about this, because I've been very concerned about this and this project for a couple of years now. If the cost of the monitoring and the wells is about 10% of the retained earnings that we have, what is and there will have to be some type of mitigation plan in the future. Whose responsibility for the mitigation or the cleanup would this be then financially, and what is the long-term plan for that if the cost of even defining the scope is that much?
Right. The cost of mitigation would ultimately fall on the airport and the city to fund. Yeah, so that would be our cost to take care of.
Okay. And is there a timeline for this project and defining the scope? Do you have any idea?
There's not necessarily a set timeline. Of course, we hope sooner rather than later, but we'll just have to continue kind of following it as it moves, and then when we get a defined area that we can be confident that it's not going to move any further or expand, then at that time we can start tackling mitigation.
Okay. I have one additional question that was not related to the finances of it. There has been a lot of activity. I've had some constituent questions about the stone pillars and the things right near the on 97 near the Wenham line that there's been a lot of work in that area. Is that related to the airport, to this project, or is that separate from? I'm not sure.
No, I don't believe that's airport related.
Just checking.
No, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Houseman.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, two questions, really.
Yeah.
Under the Massachusetts contingency plan, which deals with who's responsible, well, the regulations around environmental and hazardous materials, including who pays for the cost of remediation. Owners and operators, quote unquote, are equally responsible. Do we know who owned the property or who who actually spilled the material that is going down the plume? Is it the airport only, or was it an operator, a tenant, someone who caused this release?
So this release is related to past storage tanks that were used for avgas and jet fuel. That would have been the operators and tenants within on the airport would have all been benefiting from the use of those tanks. The tanks themselves would have, even though they were on airport-owned property, the tanks themselves, I believe, would have been owned by the FBO at the time, which has since changed hands.
So, through you, Madam President, are they still in business? Are they still an operating entity?
That FBO, no, they were bought out by the current FBO that's on the airport now.
So the current owner, to the degree that I understand the Massachusetts contingency plan, would be considered an owner and operator and therefore equally responsible for the costs of all of the remediation, including something like this. So has the Airport Commission, either through its own counsel or through the city solicitor's office, made a determination that not only the city, or maybe not even the city, is responsible for the financial costs of this? Are they seeking some kind of indemnification for the costs of cleanup? What's the status of?
Not currently, but I would be more than happy to pass that on to the commission, and we can take that up and look into that more.
Yeah, because if again, under the Massachusetts contingency plan, owners and operators are all responsible. And if this was caused not by an airport employee operating airport equipment or airport fuel tank, but in fact from a tenant, then that tenant and their successors and assigns would bear financial responsibility, at least equally, if not solely, rather than the city. So, second question is, in terms of the direction of the plume, is this moving anywhere near building number 45?
Yes, in the general direction of building 45. It's a little to the north of 45, to the northwest of it, I suppose.
And while we're on the subject, what is the status of building 45 right now? I know we've had a lot of discussions up to this point. The monies were appropriated and remain for work to be done and completed at that project. I know we have the city engineer here as well. Can you give just a brief statement about the status of that building?
Yeah, of course. So as you may be familiar, about a third of the building, there's usable office space. So the commission has been moving forward with getting some tenant at will agreements with operators already on the airport to have some additional office space and thus a little bit more revenue for the airport. As for the portion that is still left uncompleted of Building 45, there's been several ideas thrown out. We've gotten some interest from individuals who might be interested in taking that on as a project, both that I can think of for aeronautical and already familiar with the airport, so it could further kind of the aeronautical goals of the airport. The commission has also talked of putting an RFP together and getting out a large RFP for the building to see kind of what interest might be out there for the public as well.
So perhaps when the city engineering department makes their monthly reports, they can provide a little bit more detail and sort of fulsome discussion about the status of that build-out, because as I understand it, there's money that's been sitting there for a long time that has not been used for Building 45. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Spang.
I'm less well-versed in how these processes work, but I'm curious if, it sounds like they're trying, you explained that they're going to drill some more wells to try and see the boundaries.
Correct.
But it's also kind of a bit of a moving target where the groundwater is flowing.
Right.
Is there any ability to, once they delineate where it is, to put boundaries or some kind of physical border so it doesn't keep moving and we're not paying for wells year over year? I don't know if that's possible.
That would come into kind of when they start making mitigation recommendations. I mean, this is, I don't know what type of resources there are to get that far down into the groundwater and build a wall to block any more movement.
Thank you. Councillor Spang. Any other questions from councillors? Councillor Husband. Councillor Smitty, you're returning the favor.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I mean, I support, I think this is urgent that this work be carried forward, but I think it's also urgent that there be a real investigation around how it is we don't, not investigation, but inquiry really as to how it is that the Airport Commission seems to think that this is its own responsibility and not the responsibility of other parties, because why should the city be coming up with this funding when there are other sources that should be either contributing or paying the cost of that? So nevertheless, I still support this so that this work can be moved forward and the city can always seek indemnification for the money that it spends to start this project.
Thank you, Councillor. I guess I have one question I'll ask. I think follow up on that. Am I incorrect in thinking, I had read this as being possibly connected to the PFAS, the source of which may have been fire suppression training conducted by our fire department.
Right.
Is this separate from that, or this
This is a separate
Okay.
issue from the PFAS issue at the airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Are there members of the public who wish to speak in this public hearing? Mr. Perry? Seeing no members of the public, we'll go to you.
Thank you, Madam
Also a member of
President.
the public with a different role. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I have so many things to say and so little time to say it.
Aren't we all members of the public,
Yeah.
Mr. Perry?
Very quickly, follow up a little bit on Councilor Feldman there, a couple thoughts. There are more than sufficient amount of funds in the retained earnings of the enterprise fund, and like we talked about, free cash, that disappears on June 30th, so you got to do this now or we won't be able to have the funding for it. The second thing, I didn't do an analysis of this, but I'm optimistic next year we may see the retained earnings get even larger in the airport. As you all know, a lot of you did a lot of work, and I helped you with that. We were able to push the jet fuel excise through and talk in conversation with Mr. Hanford. I guess they kicked it off in January 1, where was it? Yeah, January 1st. So that's new revenue coming into this, or really to the airport. So, and the other thing I'd say along Council Houseman's comments about capital projects, there is $111,000 in the Building 45 there since 2016. I know they're still trying to figure that out. There are another 3, 4, 5 line items that are capital projects as well that they have to figure out what they're going to do. But as your budget analysts, if we get along Council Feldman's thoughts, I can see as chair is financial forecasting, she's thinking about this stuff. But there may be opportunities there if we figure out, work with the city engineering's office to go in one direction or another. There may be potential opportunities for financing there as well to deal with this and other issues of the airport. So some of the questions are great. Bottom line, I'd recommend adoption of the proposal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry. So with that, we'll close this public hearing and refer it back to the Committee on Finance and Property, also for further action this evening. We are going to circle back for a presentation, but Ms. Kent, let's work our way through the agenda and get that taken care of, and then we'll come back.
Order number 186, Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has received a $5,000 donation from the American Gift Fund. This anonymous donation will benefit the Council on Aging and senior citizens in our community. This is a restricted gift and should be used for non-budgetary events only purposes per the anonymous donor's request. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grants, earmarks, donations, or gifts to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this donation. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you. Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order number 187. Dear Honorable City Council, attached here too is a proposed order that is the first step to the process necessary for the acceptance of portions of Thaxton Road and Old Planters Road in addition to Cumnock Street and public ways. Other portions of Thaxton and Old Planters in the entire of Wyndham Lane were previously accepted as public ways in 1992. This order will allow the city to complete the acceptance process for the remaining ways that make up the Thaxton Heights neighborhood. The process of accepting a way as a public way begins with the City Council voting to express its intent to accept that way and to refer a layout plan of the way to the Planning Board for its review. The Planning Board then has 45 days to submit the Council a verbal or written non-binding report. The lack of a Planning Board report or negative report does not affect whether the process can proceed. However, the next steps in the acceptance process cannot be taken until the Planning Board has made its report of 45 days as elapsed since the referral without a report from the board, whichever is earlier. The next step will be filing of a proposed order to vote to lay out the way and to accept the way of public in addition to the taking by eminent domain of permanent easements over these ways. We anticipate that those steps will proceed when the council returns from summer recess in September. Please note that the order includes a plan identifying the necessary easements that the city intends to take or receive by donation in addition to a 1986 subdivision plan previously approved by the Planning Board. Thank you for your attention. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. Let's go to communications from other city officers and boards, please, Ms. Kent.
Order number 188 from the Assistant Commissioner of Public Services and Engineering, Eric Barber, proposed revisions to City of Beverly Ordinance 249 Stormwater Management.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 189 from the City Clerk, a request to approve 7 days of early voting for the September 3rd state primary election. Early voting will take place Saturday, August 24th through August 30th at City Hall.
Thank you. Councilors, I'd entertain a motion to approve this request on the floor. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries 9-0, and it's good to be able to take care of that this evening because that early voting will begin at the end of August.
Order number 190 from the City Clerk, a request to approve the election warrant for the September 3rd, 2024 primary state election.
For the same reason, so that we can have this squared away and ready to go for our clerk's office and department, I'd entertain a motion to approve this on the floor. All those in favor? That carries 9-0 as well. Thank you very much.
Order 191, Council Rotundo proposed to amend Ordinance 270-42A regarding parking during certain months.
Councilor Rotundo, anything you'd like to say about this at this point?
Not at this moment, thank you.
Thank you. Let's refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs then, Ms. Kent, please.
Order number 192, City Clerk, an application for a hawkers and peddlers license for John Bone, 26 Arlington Avenue.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 193 from President Flowers, an appointment for Paul Gentili to serve on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 194 from President Flowers to address some possible changes in our City Council rules.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs as well.
Order number 195 from the Assistant Solicitor Jesse Dole, a grant of permanent easement at 643 Hale Street.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. Let's go to communications, applications, and petitions, please, Ms. Kent.
Order number 196, the notice of availability response to public comment of 150 Sawyer Road.
I would entertain a motion to receive that and place it on file. All those in favor? That carries 9-0. Thank you.
Order number 197 from the Department of Environmental Protection, issuance of Chapter 91 Waterways, license number 15580 and 15581, 15 and 43, 47A Water Street and 67 Water Street.
I would entertain a motion to receive that and place it on file as well. All those in favor? That carries 9-0.
Order number 198 from the tree, Far From the Tree, Jessica Crenchimano, a waiver of ordinance 113-2A for Far From the Tree at the Beverly's Farmers Market 2024.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 199 from Old Planters Brewing, Ben Gary, a waiver of ordinance 113-2A for Old Planters Brewery on August 10th at the Grand Prix of Beverly.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs as well.
Yep.
Yeah, let's,
Motions and orders? Or?
not yet. Let's, I know we have a presentation to go back to. I also know there are some folks from the public who are waiting for some of the routine business for subcommittees. So, counselors, I'd entertain a motion to take a brief break for subcommittee work. If there's things that are gonna be longer business, we can break again, but maybe we can get through some of them so that some of these folks don't have to keep waiting. So motion to take a break for some subcommittee work. All those in favor? Thank you. We'll have finance and property stay here, legal affairs in the committee room, public services on the bench. Let's try to keep this to about 15 minutes. Again, if you have longer business, we can break again, but maybe we can get some of the routine things so that folks can go. Thank you.
Call to order the Committee on Finance and Property. Good evening, folks. We've got a number of orders on the agenda tonight. I guess we'll get started with the public hearings that were just finished up that were transferred back to us. I would start with Order 165, which is a $2 million free cash transfer request to be put into the Road and Sidewalk Capital Fund. I would entertain a motion to approve that order.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments? None? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that is approved 3-0. Okay, the next order I'll take up is Order 164. This is a $1 million free cash transfer request into the Debt Stabilization Fund, which we had a discussion on tonight. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Me. Passes 2-0. 2-1, I'm sorry. 2-1. Okay, I'll take up Order 176. This is the CPC 11th round CPA project funding recommendations. Again, we heard about this tonight. I would entertain a motion to approve this order.
So moved. Second.
Now that my mic's actually
Any
working.
comments, questions, discussion?
If I may.
Please.
Just a brief comment, since I didn't comment much during the public hearing, but I just wanted to say that I appreciated hearing from the committee on their reasons for recommending approval of these requests, but I also personally feel like these are some really excellent requests, and I appreciate the emphasis on housing and accessibility of housing. So I'm pleased to be able to support this.
I agree. A lot of good work being done there, and thank you for your work, Mr. Beckwith. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, that is approved 3-0. So Order 181, this is the airport request for $45,000 to be transferred from the Airport Enterprise Fund for the professional services related to groundwater contamination testing. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, that is approved, 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Hannafin, for being here. Let's see, we'll go to Order 183, and I think maybe Ms. Barrett, if you wouldn't mind commenting on this one. This is a $1.455 million grant we got from the Environmental Protection Agency for the Clean School Program to purchase 8 electric vehicles for the Beverly schools.
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to make a few comments. We have applied for this EPA grant 3 times, and the 3rd time was a charm, and we got awarded. It's very competitive. I think we're one of 17 communities in the state of Massachusetts to receive it. So it really was a huge win, and I want to give credit to our Sustainability Director, Irina Keefe. I know how complicated those electric school bus grants can be because I worked on the first 2 back in 2019 and 20. So it was a very exciting day to get that grant. And I actually got the email first, so she didn't know, and I called her. I said, you need to check your email right now. But anyways, the grant is for 8 electric school buses, and it will pay for approximately 55 to 60% of the buses. Receiving that grant opens us up to 3 other grant opportunities. So those grant opportunities will make up the variance for the buses and the electric charging. And the second one that we're going to be going for is the ACT school bus grant, and that is due July 10th. So we're working on that right now, and hopefully we'll be awarded. We can also go for the More EV and the National Grid Make Ready. So between those 4 pools of funding sources, whatever we get, 1, 2, 3, or 4, hopefully all those costs will be covered. It's very exciting. The buses do need to be ordered by November 29th. And they will be delivered for the upcoming school year and the next school year. So they'll go across two different school years. And I just want to point out that our superintendent, Sue Chirocek, is here, and her team. And thank you for their support on this grant, as well as Mayor Cahill. So.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett, and thank you, Dr. Chirocek, and Ms. Abel as well, school committee president. Thank you for being with us. Any questions or comments from counselors? Counselor Sweeney?
Just one, Mr. Chairman. You answered it, Ms. Barrett, but I want to make sure I'm abundantly clear. So it sounds like the plan is that this grant, which, thank you for the work you and Ms. Keefe and others put into it, that'll pay the bulk of these costs, and the plan is to supplement the remainder with other grants and not to use any city funding for these buses, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, and I think our financial team will be pleased about that.
Just out of curiosity, I have a question. What is the cost difference between one electric bus versus
So I learned more about electric school buses in 2019 or 20 than I ever thought I wanted to know. A combustion engine bus is about $90,000 to $95,000, maybe a little bit more depending on if you get the cold or the warm weather package. We typically get the cold weather package. An electric school bus is more like $300,000. However, if you're buying in volume, the price starts to go down. So there are some cities and towns and counties across the country that are buying 50 or 100 buses at a time. So their cost is lower than ours would be, but around $300,000 is a good ballpark. And so for most communities to make that transition to all electric, you need grants, rebates, incentives, and then opportunities from the government, like tax credits and direct pay and other things like that will help you pay for those electric school buses. So hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I think the mayor has.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
thank you for being with us. Sure.
Thank you. I want to thank Ms. Barrett, who does so much amazing work. I'm so sorry to have to update a couple of your numbers.
Oh, okay.
So the comparable numbers she was quoting between diesels and electrics were accurate a couple of years ago. At present, the diesel are going around 140 to 150, and the electric are going about 350 to 370. So the delta is roughly, what does that leave us, about 230K? So 200 versus 200, we got to get to 350, 360, so about 160. Compare that to 140 for a diesel. So you're close, right there.
But no one's giving you a grant to buy a diesel, correct?
That's true. No one's giving you a grant to buy a diesel. So it's close. And as she said, the other funding sources to help with the vehicle purchase and with the charging infrastructure should get us really fully through that gap.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. Any other questions, comments, Mr. Sweeney?
Just one more quick question, Mr. Chair. This is probably for Mr. Ailes or perhaps some of the school folks that are here. By getting this grant funding and hopefully attaining additional grant funding to cover the full cost of this purchase, do we free up money in the budget that we would have otherwise put toward traditional diesel purchases had we not had this additional money, or is it offsetting?
So we are going to be using some of our funding in our appropriation that's for buses with this. So we're looking for grants, but we're not going to get 100%. And we've already told Arena how much we have available.
Okay, does that answer your question, Mrs. Sweeney?
Yes, I guess just to confirm then, so there's money available in the school department budget for buses, and there is a need for some local funding that would come
That's
from
already
that
been
funding
budgeted,
source to
yes. That's already
offset
been budgeted,
whatever
yes.
the grant can't pay for.
Yes.
Okay, do you have a rough number
No.
on that? Okay, I know, I
No,
was putting you on
I
the
did
spot with
not know that,
question.
yeah, I did not know that was on the agenda tonight, but yes,
Okay.
I'm
I
gonna
can-
guess probably approximately about $140,000 is what we have budgeted that's not already earmarked for loans that we already have.
Got it, that's helpful, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it for me, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
I'm good.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
As approved, 3-0. I'll take up order 185. We still good on time, Council President? Yeah. 185 is a
Like 5
grant.
minutes, Ms. Kemp? Oh, like 2 minutes, okay. 5 minutes, okay.
Let's see if
Okay.
we can get through this here.
All right.
Executive Office of Public Safety, Department of Fire Services grant for $7,200, as well as a second grant for senior safe grant for $2,600. Ms. Barrett, anything to say on this one? This is for fire and life safety initiatives.
Yes, I spoke with Chief Peter O'Connor today. There was an incident that the fire department was responding to up on the Merrimack River, so he couldn't be here. He works on both of these grants. These are annual grants for SAFE, which is for youth, and then Senior Safe, which targets our senior citizens. This year, it's close to about $10,000, and it's really for education and teaching people to install smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and just educating youth on fire safety in general. If there is a fire in your home or school or elsewhere, they're teaching the children what to do. So, and no matches or anything on these grants either.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Any comments or questions, Councilors?
No.
I would entertain a motion to approve Order 185.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. That is approved 3-0. And we'll take up our last order here tonight, Order 186. This is a donation of $5,000 from the American Gift Fund to benefit the Council on Aging. Ms. Barrett, what is the American Gift Fund?
Thank you. It's just a kind of a clearinghouse for donors that want to be anonymous. So this donation came in to benefit the senior center. I have no information on who's giving it or why. I just know it's an anonymous donation, and the senior center can use it as they would like. It's an unrestricted gift. So
Thank you to
You're
whoever
welcome.
Mr. Anonymous or Ms. Anonymous is.
These are always exciting when they
Yeah.
come in because I don't know who they're from, but it's benefiting something in the city, so they're
We will
excited.
take it. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve Order 186.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I did not. No, we're just always trying to communicate without words about who's motioning and seconding.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was everything. So I would entertain a motion to approve the Committee on Finance and Property.
Adjourn. I will move to adjourn.
Yes,
Second.
I approve the committee.
It is a nice committee.
Yeah, I'll approve.
Thank you for that catch, Counselor Sweeney. Of course. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
The chair. You're just standing right here.
Thank you, everyone. Kim, are you ready to roll? Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll call the full council back to order. As I mentioned, we're circling back to a presentation from our presentation spot. But before we do, I just need to comment. It's really lovely. We have live jazz music coming in from outside, but for most of the meeting, I've just been assuming, Councilor Tender, that was your laptop, and you were just enjoying a little jazz. Yeah. So either way. Thank you very much to our planning director, Darlene Nguyen, and also our assistant planning director, Ken Clausen. I know you've been waiting for your turn to present to us, and so we're happy to be able to get to that. So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
All right. Yes. Thank you, council members, for having me, and thank you to Ken. He's actually done a lot of this work and led a lot of this, and I asked him 5 minutes ago. I was like, "Oh, did you want to present this?" And so maybe next time. But I also just wanted to recognize that this is a really important issue. I know everybody's been getting questions about it and asking about it, but for tonight, this is going to be really quick. I meant this to be just a high-level check-in to say, hey, this is where we are, this is what we've been doing, and to kick off kind of what I hope will be, getting more information out over the summer, and then zoning amendment filings come fall. So, Ken, you can go to the next slide. So MBTA Communities Act, for the maybe few people who don't know yet, was a law that was adopted in 2021, established a requirement that each of the 177 designated MBTA communities have zoning that provides for at least one district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right. And I will flag here that while it might seem like the city of Beverly meets all of these requirements already, and very much so, we kind of believe that we do. The state is defining as of right or by right a little bit differently than we can think about it and what our zoning allows right now. So you cannot have age restrictions, and it shall be suitable for families with children. Must have a minimum gross density of 15 dwelling units per acre, and part of the district must be located within half mile of a transit station, bus commuter, ferry. Ken, you can go to the next slide. It was not the one I thought I was getting, but that's okay. So what I would say, again, that 15 dwelling units per acre is kind of, we do have zoning that accommodates that density and more in our downtown area, but again, meeting the kind of specific requirements of the law is where we have to do some fine tuning. So in Beverly, we are a commuter rail category. We initially were a bus category, which would have required a higher level of compliance or a higher number of units, but we made a point that we don't really have bus service like you think of in Somerville or kind of inner ring communities. So we did get downgraded to commuter rail. The law requires that 15% of the 2020 census total housing units count as multifamily. So for us, with 17,887 housing units total in the city, that's a unit capacity of 2,683. So kind of glanced over this whole thing. We are zoning for this capacity. We are not building this capacity. That's the law. The law is you have to create zoning that allows that number of units in that geographic area around a train station or a bus station or a ferry terminal. For us, it would be 2,683 units. There is an option, which I will describe in a little bit, that allows us to reduce that to 2,103 units. 90% of those units have to be located in a station area for Beverly. Some communities have a different number. It relates to the developable land. And again, our minimum density requirement is 15 units per acre. So since late 2022, when the regulations were finally put into place and we had a plan and beginning of an understanding of what we were going to be asked to do, we've done the action plan, an interim compliance letter, which we got in February of 2023. We played around with a compliance model that they created for a little while, and then we realized this is really complicated, and we got free technical assistance for them to spend a year with us tweaking it and testing out all these different scenarios. And then in 2023, when they passed some changes to the law, to their regulations, this mandatory mixed use location portion came out, which is a good thing for us, and I will describe it. And so then we had to tweak again, starting in August, and rerun all these calculations. We did end up applying for a mandatory mixed-use location determination this spring, which we received, and an economic feasibility analysis was prepared, and we passed. That was necessary for communities that have inclusionary zoning requirements that are more strict than the regulation allows, and ours is more strict, and we want to keep it that way. So Beverly's, I'm just kind of, it says options, but really we're kind of here, I'm presenting what we think is the best route for Beverly. So in August of 2023, when they passed this, some regulations, which were some changes to the regulations, which were in response to complaints from communities. And I will say one of our issues all along was that mixed by right, as determined by the state, did not allow a community to require ground floor non-residential uses in a transit zone around a train station. And that doesn't work for Beverly if we're talking about the area around the Beverly Depot, which is where we were looking. It's very important for that area to have activated ground floor uses. We've done a lot of work to refine that zoning. And so we were grateful that the state tweaked the regulations to allow us to basically get a 25% offset of our requirement. So we had to determine and analyze this district, kind of come up with the right area, the right parameters, and then we were able to take off 670 units of our minimum requirement. So we went from the 2683 to 2103. This district that's shown that's outlined in blue is the depot parking overlay district, as it is. So it's already an area that's largely built out, already has a parking reduction allowance in it. It's the area around the train station, an area that has already been considered a transit-oriented area, really the hub of that area in downtown Beverly. It allows us to still require ground floor non-residential uses in that district and count it towards, really taking a benefit for what we've done and what we've allowed in terms and encouraged in terms of housing production there. Because otherwise this law doesn't allow us to take credit for any of the work that we've done in the past. So we're counting basically the 670 units offset from that district. That district will not be part of our compliance district, but it is allowed to count as our offset. The only catch is that in order for us to use this district, we cannot require parking for commercial uses in the district. So we would need to request a zoning change to eliminate minimum requirements for commercial parking in the depot parking overlay district. That currently has a reduction, 1 space per unit for all residential uses in that district. Ken has done a very detailed analysis, which we will share with you at a later date, anticipating some of the questions you have about what all of the buildings that have been built there have required, which ones have come in for special permits, and many of those structures are pre-existing structures. The commercial uses are already there, and they either already don't have parking or they park on street in some cases. So, and some of them, the newer projects do have commercial parking, but we have that analysis for you when we have a longer conversation about this. So this map shows our compliance district, and it is our proposed compliance district for MBTA communities. When you take out the 25% offset, so those 270 units, we're required to have a zoned capacity for 2,103 units. This set of districts, which comprises the CC district, the RHD, and the RMD. It does not include Cabot Street, again, because we really didn't want to tweak with the ground floor commercial uses. Well, except for the southern part of Cabot Street. It doesn't include the northern part, thanks, Ken. We didn't want to tweak those important ground floor non-residential uses. So the unit capacity in that zone is 2,163, so a little bit more than we're required. Same with the density, 17.2 units per acre, where 15 is required. We're well over the 50-acre requirement, and the circle represents a half-mile radius from the Beverly Depot train station. So we believe that the proposed MBTA communities district that we are showing you very briefly complies with the law using the MMU offset, except for these 1 to 3 changes, which we're still evaluating. But certainly eliminating the commercial parking requirements in the depot parking overlay district, and we might need to make a couple tweaks to that boundary, very minor. That is the one thing that we would have to do if we want to reduce our compliance to 2,100. And then we may also need to revise the language that talks about the way we handle ground floor non-residential uses on the outer non-core pedestrian area that we adopted a couple of years ago, mainly because we want to clear that with the state. We allow multifamily there and allow residential on the ground floor, but we say we want it designed to accommodate commercial uses. So we want to make sure that we could change that very easily. But. And then my plan is to submit the design standards concurrently with any of these zoning changes. We've also tested the compliance model against the design standards, and they don't impact it at all. And so just to flag, if we choose not to use the MMU district, or if the elimination of commercial parking requirements in the MMU district fails to pass, we would have to meet the 2,683 unit capacity. And our prior analysis showed that would require a combination of additional dimensional changes, most likely in the RHD and RMD, that would decrease the minimum lot size area, decrease parking requirement for residential uses to below 2 per unit, and or increase the allowable height, which is something we recently decreased. So just flagging that as the alternative that we were looking at prior. And just noting too that even though, so again, we're making the zoning allow this, but a lot of our, and we have data, we can use this in a longer presentation too, but a lot of our existing housing stock already exceeds these thresholds, so this is something to keep in mind. So next steps, we're planning to do community education and outreach over the summer. We have a very detailed and thorough website, which went live this afternoon. So go ahead and check it out on our planning website under plans and studies and zoning. And then hoping to file amendments in the fall, early in the fall, in order to hit a approval mid-fall and submit our compliance application by our deadline of December 31st, 2024. I want to invite you all to send us comments. I'm open to feedback as to how and where we should meet with people over the summer. We're going to hopefully have a couple of meetings. And we have a community feedback form on the next slide, which is on our website too. And people can, that's the preferred way for people to send comments because we can collect it all in one place. That's it.
Thank you.
I don't know how well I did, but.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Thank you also, Mr. Clausen. It sounds like, from what you're saying, that we'll have a chance to dig into this much further.
Yes.
And so this is really updating us, and we'll look forward to conversation and really digging into this together.
Yes.
In the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. We will pick up at our agenda where we had left off, which is with, we have unfinished business from a previous meeting, and this will remain unfinished tonight. This is Order 161, Mayor Cahill's proposed FY25 budget. As councilors know, we have a special meeting tomorrow evening. That will be our final budget discussions and votes, so that's when we'll take up Order 161. We do have something under motions and orders. This is Order 175, and we did receive a letter that which came in for the council and can be attached to that order. As councilors will recall, Order 175 has already had preliminary readings and a first vote. It is available for final passage this evening. I see that our harbor master, Mr. Dickman, is here. Thank you very much for being here. I'm not sure if there's anything that you wanted to say at this point, or our assistant city solicitor. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Ms. Kent, will you go ahead and read that while Mr. Dickman is out of the room?
Order number 175 be entertained by the City Council of the City of Beverly as follows. Amend Section 124 boating and waterways regarding the regulations of vessels and activities within the harbor, waterways, and tidal waters in the city of Beverly that are under the jurisdiction of the Beverly Harbor Master. Specifically, the amendments regulate the operation of vessels, the removal of obstructions, the reporting of accidents involving vessels in Glover Wharf. In addition to requiring annual harbor master permits and mooring permits, and further details the enforcement of this section and the penalties for violations. And this was in the newspaper on June 7th, and the full text is in our office or on the website.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. So councilors, before we have any further questions or discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve for final passage Order 175. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions on Order 175? Councilor Sweeney.
It's a general question anyways, and maybe if it's you, Assistant Solicitor Dole, that worked most closely on this, just so I fully understand. I know we have the text of the proposal in front of us, but I don't know if it was redlined, which is typically how I try to track any changes that we're proposing. So just for me, but also for anybody from the public who's listening, could you summarize the changes that are proposed and what their impact would be, practically speaking?
So the changes would be the existing Chapter 124 boating and waterways would be deleted in its entirety and replaced with Order 175.
Okay.
So there's no red line because it's just a wholesale replacement.
Okay, thank you for that. And I am far from an expert in this area, don't really have a terribly strong grasp of the practical implications, but I know that we all, through this letter and then probably through direct email correspondence, heard from a private business owner in the city who was concerned that there would be certain information that their clients, I guess, for lack of a better term, that they might have trouble tracking down or that their clients may not want to provide. Again, I don't really know the details of this proposal and how that would impact the requirement to bring that information forward, but Mr. Dole, if you could maybe elaborate on if there is additional information that's being requested by the city of any impacted businesses as part of this proposal, what the need for that additional information is?
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Dole, please.
So from a legal standpoint, I don't see any legal issues either raised by that business owner about this. I can, as far as, I think I'd need you to ask the question again, but at least from my perspective, from a legal perspective, there's nothing that gives me pause about what we have drafted and presented to the council regarding that request for information, which is contained in.
So thank you for that, Mr. Dole. Maybe to just rephrase, from the city's perspective, what is the value in obtaining this information? Is it a public safety matter, or are there other interests at play that necessitated this change that the city has proposed here, or the administration's proposed?
So I'll try to keep it brief, and I'm sure you may be aware, but I'm not sure if this is an issue for your town. Boat excise tax is assessed by the municipality where the boat is habitually moored, docked, or situated during the summer season. So unlike motor vehicles where the auto excise tax is assessed where the person lives, where you garage your vehicle, this is something different. So it gives the assessor's office through the harbor master's office ability to know every boat that is actually habitually, and that's why that language habitually moored, docked, or berthed in the city, that tracks the language in the boat excise tax requirements, that we would have a full accounting of what vessels are habitually moored, docked, or within the city.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor St. Hilaire, did I see your hand?
Yeah, so I just follow up with Councilor Sweeney's comments. I'm just curious, what drove the need for this change and what process we went through to engage with stakeholders in general?
So as we do quite often, ordinances tend to become outdated, would be helpful for department heads in the city in general to build out the authority that's granted to these people by state law and CMRs.
So that is one of the goals here. If you see the statute that's referenced right at the very beginning, the first paragraph of the proposed amendments, under Chapter 90B, Section 15, a city or town via ordinance can regulate the vessels on waters, Commonwealth waters within the city and the activities thereupon. That is what we are attempting to do through this. And I will point out, in a general sense, if there's some concerns about the legality of this, by law, by state law, any town or city that wishes to regulate vessels on the waters and the activities thereon need to have that proposed bylaw or ordinance approved by the Massachusetts Environmental Police via the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So that process was engaged. This was a long-term process, working through the Environmental Police and General Counsel's office at EEA, where the original draft of this amended ordinance was presented. It was returned to me with some suggested edits that were either preempted by state law or contradicted by state law. The final draft of this proposed amended ordinance was approved by EEA, which is a prerequisite before we can bring it to council for a vote. So if there are any, and I would liken it to some of you I have spoken with in the past about town bylaw approval process, that a town bylaw needs to be approved by the municipal law unit of the Attorney General's office. This is not the same, but it is a similar review process for both towns and cities if we wish to take advantage of Chapter 90B, Section 15 to regulate vessels and activities in the waters within the city. I know that there's some concerns have been raised. None of them give me any pause to question the authority that we've been granted by state law and what we're seeking to regulate through this amended ordinance.
Just to follow up, I like Councilor Sweeney. I'm not an expert in this area either. I just would be concerned if folks who are stakeholders and are impacted were not given an opportunity to weigh in. That would be my only concern here.
Councilor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. Just to build off of that comment and turn it into a question, that's a concern I have as well. And so then thinking about timing, is there a reason that we need this approved now? Is it a matter of needing approval at the end of the fiscal year? Because I would assume at this point in the middle of June, we're pretty well underway of the voting season, so to speak.
We intended to do this over the winter. That statutory step of the approval of the ordinance through the state environmental police and EEA was a very time-consuming process. I started working on this back last fall, and it was submitted to the environmental police, I believe, maybe even in November. So it did take some time to get done. We are not in the full swing of the summer season, but very close to. And I think, as you may be aware, the boat excise tax is assessed as of July 1st. So, we'd like to be able to get these regulations voted, done, ready for this boating season, because the alternative is returning in the fall, and at that point, the season's lost. So, I mean, there was an intent to get this done much sooner, but just that review process, we're at the mercy of the state to get that done.
So really, and thank you, Mr. Dole, just so I understand, that's really the push then, is the getting the ordinance passed by the start of this coming fiscal year.
With the recess coming up, no, I'm not, we'd like to.
And there would be, I think Mr. Ailes left, but there's a concern that there might be an impact to revenues that the city should be collecting for excise tax on boats that, because of a lack of information, we're not currently collecting.
Yes, and as far as I know, the question about process, I mean, this is the same process that we follow for any ordinance amendment, either new ordinance or an ordinance amendment, whether it be parking. I seem to be in front of you quite frequently on these ordinance amendments. The process was followed that we always follow internally here, and the process was followed that is required by Chapter 90B, Section 15, of not only the review at the state level of any such regulations, but the notice requirement also. So, and actually, if this were to be voted on favorably, I would still have to submit that vote to General Counsel's Office of EEA, that they had confirmation that we actually did do this, because they keep track of any municipality that does regulate, and I'll repeat the phrase, vessels on waters, Commonwealth waters within the city and the activities thereon.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dole. I'll just note, I know others have questions, I don't want to take up time, but I understand the process that you've laid out in front of us, Mr. Dole, and the administration's timeline. I'll note I'm a little concerned from my perspective. It feels like we're moving quickly on this. That may not be a bad thing. As one of the newer counselors, we don't, that I've only gone through a handful of ordinance proposals where there's actually been public feedback from an impacted stakeholder, and so that's part of my concern in approving this, though I certainly understand the timeline that the administration has laid out and why they have followed it as they proposed. That's just my comment, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor St. Hilaire.
I guess for Mr. Perry, what is the budget impact here? How did we anticipate in the budget this revenue? Is this new revenue? Is this budgeted in the proposed budget? And how much are we talking about here?
I don't know the answer to that question. I try to track down Mr. Ailes. I don't believe it's in the budget, though. It's my understanding it's not. So,
Would be additional unanticipated. Or
yeah, probably roll to the,
Foreseen revenue?
no, it probably, they have a harbor master enterprise fund. It probably roll into the enterprise fund.
Any idea, ballpark, how much this?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I just don't have that in. I'll be frank with you, I did not work on this at all. I didn't anticipate this being an issue for you, but we can certainly look into it, I don't have the answers.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Counselor St. Hilaire. Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. I had similar questions. I think at our last meeting when we took that first vote, asked about that timeline, and I sort of anticipated we might get a more complete walkthrough of the proposed overhaul of this section at some point in the process, and understood that we would need to do some homework for tonight. I'm also not an expert, so was hoping we might hear a little bit from our representatives to the Harbor Management Authority on the extent to which stakeholder voices were included through any discussions there. And also, just thinking about the dates that are included in this ordinance, have some concerns about imposing a new requirement for this July 1st, just giving anyone time to become aware of those changes, let alone meet them. So, would lean towards trying to hold this until September, when we could, it's great to hear that there was a review at the state level. Maybe there's some information from that review that would help us answer questions that we get, and just feel that confidence. And then again, if there's any discussion that was had within Harbor Management or other venues, to know that objections that folks might have, whether they could be addressed or not, that they were heard and sort of factored into the decision-making before this final version came to us.
So if you would review the ordinances and the authority of the Harbor Management Authority, the Harbor Management Authority has no jurisdiction under Chapter 90B, Chapter 91, Chapter 102. Those all regulate harbors, harbor masters, waterways, and motorboats and vessels that Harbor Master Dickman, by law, is empowered to enforce and oversee. These do not address the very end. There's a little bit of cleanup about the Glover Wharf regulations, but nothing is changed. All of the Glover Wharf regulations have just been condensed. There were 3 separate sets of regulations. They were all the same. So we just put them into one single instead of having the same thing said 3 times. So the regulation of boating and waterways, the Harbor Management Authority has no statutory CMR or ordinance-based authority or responsibility or jurisdiction over. It is a harbor master that enforces all of these state laws and the related CMRs. And nothing that is in here, anyone other than the harbor master has any legal authority to work on. So, I would like to point out that we do have an existing requirement of mooring permits. We've had that for a very long period of time. The harbor master's office has required harbor master permits for a very long period of time. We have required fees for those permits for a very long period of time. The fee for a mooring permit is allowed by state law. The harbor master permit fee, that was actually found to be legal and constitutional under a former city ordinance requiring that by the appeals court in 1987. They said that that was a legal constitutional fee. So there's nothing novel really novel in this. What it does is it just, to the full extent that the harbor master is authorized by these state laws and these CMRs to perform his job in a public safety function of the waters within the city, and to really make sure that everyone is following these statutes and these CMRs. He's the only one that can do it. No one else in the city can. So, and finally, to whatever process is, it follows the same process any ordinance amendment or drafting follows here. So, that's why whatever concerns may have been raised by outside parties at the 11th hour today, from a legal standpoint, gives me no pause about our legal authority to do what is being proposed.
I'd like to go to Councilor Rotundo because I think he has some information that could be helpful here because you are one of the folks who relates to the harbor management.
Right, thank you. Through you, Madam President, to Councilor Bowen. So as Mr. Dole had stated back in the fall, I did talk with Mr. Dickman. He had approached me about the ordinances. He was working with them. Harbor Management's authority is strictly to the slips and only the slips. Everything else is jurisdiction underneath the harbor master. So there has been conversations about it, but not specifically of what our authority is on it, because we don't have that authority. The authority that is allotted to us is strictly the slips, but we were aware of it, not that there was big conversations within it, because it's something that has been sort of worked on, and I can speak for myself that I had sat down with the harbor master back in the fall, and he was telling me how he was working with Mr. Dole on developing updated rules. There's a lot of them that were old, antiquated. Some of them were contradictory. Some of them were just thrown in from City Council many years ago that didn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. And just to maybe clarify my question, because I'm hearing a lot of the sort of reiteration that are, to the letter of the law, legal process has been followed. I have confidence in that. My question was more, what are all the different ways that we tried to hear from people who might be impacted and addressed their concerns, even if addressing their concern is to say, here's why we don't think that concern is impacted in the way you interpret it, or we do believe that and feel it's in the city's interest to do this. So that's all I'm trying to get at, that there might be other ways that was discussed, even above and beyond, who has the formal authority to enforce those regulations. And since we do have wonderful volunteers who support all of these areas, I'd like to tap into them when and where we can. My other question, and I'm not sure if anyone who's in the room right now can answer it, but just what is the process the assessors use right now to understand who's habitually moored in Beverly in order to collect excise taxes currently? It sounds like some of what's here is adding further sort of coverage in our ordinances of existing current practice, and that might be a new or different practice, and is the one that prompted at least one of the questions. So if anybody has a sense of how that's going right now and what that process currently is, that would be helpful to know.
Mr. Dickman, thank you. And then we'll go to Councilor
Good evening,
Houseman.
councilors. So right now, we do permit all vessels and collect owner information, contact information, and require a permit for a fee, and that information is compiled and is passed on to the assessors for the excise tax. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And so the information for...
So this, and by the way, the revision of ordinances don't change our practices at all. We have a published rules and regulations for Beverly Harbor in a pamphlet that's given to boat owners, or it's published on our website. And we've been operating this way for, well, a long time before I've been here. And just recently discovered a lot of the current ordinances don't support those rules and regulations. And they did at one time, but during a revision, I think 15 to 20 years ago, a lot of those ordinances were removed for some reason. But with the new revision, there'll be no changes in those rules or regulations. We don't have to republish that manual that we've been using all this time.
Thank you, Mr. Dickman. Counselor Houseman.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Dickman, if you would remain at the podium for a moment. It's my understanding, based on an issue that came up last summer, that there was an ambiguity related to the collection of, well, related to a definition that had to do with the collection of fees for dockage, slips, and moorings. And that in particular hindered your department from being able to collect fees unless and until it was addressed, and this replacement is intended, at least in part, to address that. Is that a fair statement so far?
These amendments were to make sure that the authority that's granted to the harbor master under these various state laws was crystal clear. And it appeared to someone that made a complaint that they didn't think it was crystal clear, or they were unsure. So what's done here is just an explicit clarification of how the harbor master has been operating for quite some time. And I guess, to be blunt, no one with a boat that has had a boat in Beverly waters should be surprised by this, because it does not upend any past practice that's been going on. So it's good, in good practice and best housekeeping. We want to make sure that this was crystal clear what is required of boat owners in the city, and cross our i's and dot our t's. So, as far as this being a surprise to a boat owner, I would be surprised if somebody was surprised.
Through you, Madam President. So, thank you for your comment, but it doesn't really answer my question, which I believe is a yes or no question, that there was an ambiguity that this
I didn't think
revision-
there was an ambiguity. Someone thought there was an ambiguity, so we decided to try to make it crystal clear so no one would be mistaken about what the harbor master did.
So part of the purpose of this is to clear up a specific ambiguity. Mr. Dickman, as I understand it, the collection of these fees related to, at least the ambiguity relating to dockage or slips or moorings and so forth, is a portion of your budget. Is that correct?
The revenue from the permits for moorage.
Right.
Yes.
And so the absence of that would adversely affect your budget. I think in a conversation with you said to the tune of something like $20,000, give or take?
Approximately, yes.
And how much roughly is that a percentage of your overall total budget?
About 20% of the
About
revenue.
20%. So about 20% of your budget for fiscal year 2025 would be adversely affected if this is not passed this evening, if I understand it correctly.
Potentially, yeah.
And the ambiguity in question that I at least am referring to, which you and I spoke about last summer, really was a challenge to a practice that was long-standing. So to Mr. Dole's point, this shouldn't really surprise anyone in terms of what has been the long-standing practice of the harbor authorities, the harbor master's office. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Counselor Houseman. We do have a motion and a second. Counselor Sweeney.
Just one quick question specifically. It was one that was flagged in an email from me from one of the impacted stakeholders. In section 124.7, section C, there's a list of information that private marinas, yacht clubs, commercial usage, that any business that operates within that realm would need to collect. And listed is a request for the private and business address and phone numbers of renters. I could understand wanting information from the owner of the boat themselves, but could you maybe elaborate on where the business information would be relevant in this context?
If it's a non-individual, it's a commercial owner,
Okay.
I mean, that's sort of
But
information.
that's what it,
Yes.
nothing to do with a private individual who owns a boat and happens to have some other
I don't see why that would be relevant. So, and if there's some concerns about the legality of that, an almost identical provision in the town of Salisbury was approved by the Attorney General's office just a matter of probably about 7 years or so ago. So, as I usually say, I don't invent these ordinances out of thin air. I usually rely on a bylaw that I know has been approved by the Attorney General's Municipal Law Unit. So most of this, if not this entire ordinance was, and there's no plagiarism in law, was cribbed from bylaws that I knew had been through that process of both the Attorney General's office and at least presumably the EEA. So that is something that if there's some concern about the legality of that, I'm confident it gives me no pause based on what I've seen in other communities that have gone through the same process that we are right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dole.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Spang.
Thank you, Madam President. One other question that was raised by, I believe, the same customer was that noting that the city operates a marina in the same space that there's a private marina, and some concerns about sharing customer information with an entity that is in some form a competitor. So I didn't know if there could be a sentence or something added to it that says the Harbor Master Department will not share that information with the HMA, or if that, I don't know if that's possible or not, but that was one of the concerns, was why would we submit our customer information and contact information when there's a competing marina that the city owns and operates through HMA?
To the extent there's an allegation that the Harbor Management Authority is somehow poaching customers from a different marina, I'm unaware of any evidence of that existing. I do know that our waiting list for the Glover Wharf Marina must have dozens of people waiting on it. It's not something that pops up all the time. I mean, those are pretty coveted slips in the marina. As far as the information requested, we do operate under the Public Records Law. And I think there was some concern about maybe some privacy issues about the type of information that's disclosed. But I can tell you by reviewing the Secretary of State's Public Records Law Guide, there is one of the exceptions to the public record that is exempted from production are things that have some privacy concerns. And actually within that guide, there is a discussion about unlisted, unpublished cell phone numbers, personal email addresses, things like that, that the guide suggests that, absent some compelling public interest in the disclosure of those things, that those are entirely reasonable for a municipality to withhold from production. So, and just in a general sense, when anyone in the city does get a public records request, we just don't regurgitate every record that's produced. If there are concerns about, whether it is a public record and whether there are appropriate exemptions to the production of those documents that exist, we take that very seriously, and we don't. And if there's a reason not to produce some sort of private record, of course. But by extension, the assessor's office would produce how much your house is assessed for, the land, the building, how much you paid and how much you mortgaged is at the registry of deeds. I mean, there's certain things that just, that aren't that personal. But we, of course, if someone, whether it was a marina in some other community, said we want, we take a very hard look at withholding things that are of a private nature, something that would be that would fall under that. It's exemption C to the Public Records Law. As to poaching customers, I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to indulge in that. But obviously, we take privacy concerns of the public very as we do with elected officials and employees too, but especially with members of the public who are not elected officials and employees.
Thank you, Counselor.
Sorry, just one follow-up. And the names and addresses, I assume, are also provided to the RMV when people register their boats, so that information is sort of already kind of in the public sphere, or is this different?
You actually register a boat with the environmental police, so it's not through the RMV. And as mentioned earlier, the boat excise tax is assessed by not where the owner lives, but where the boat is, quote, habitually moored, berthed, or situated during the summer season. So it wouldn't be, if you trailer your boat, you put it in your backyard, or you leave it at a marina in a different town over the winter, or I know the storage facility up on Sawyer. I mean, people store their boats off-season various places that are not where they live. but they're also not where they put the boat in the water, moor it, put it on a slip, wherever. So it makes it, my understanding through speaking with Harbor Master Dickman, it makes it a little harder to track down where these boats are. So, it is a movable asset, unlike a house. So the ability to identify boats that are moored, placed on slips, docks, yacht clubs, private piers, things like that. And it's something that has been done. I mean, there are other places within the city, other than the individual that raised these issues tonight, that do it as a matter of course. So it's as I said, this isn't exactly something novel or new, something that hasn't been approved, and done in other and things that we've done here for a very long time.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Spang. Councillor Hessman, I know you had your hand up before, and then I think we've got a motion in a second. It seems like we're ready to take a vote on this, however councillors may feel.
I'll be brief. Yeah. Is it the case that as a matter of practical providing of notice to a major stakeholder in Beverly's harbor that they were not given sort of a heads up, or the other marinas were not given a heads up to say, hey, listen, this is something that we're doing? Setting aside the solicitor's office standing, foursquare behind the legal integrity or the legal accuracy of this, it sounds like at least the suggestion by Beverly Port Marine is that they were sort of caught off guard. Was there any practical attempt to reach out as a matter of sort of courtesy to a neighbor and sort of give them a heads up that this was going to be before the council?
My understanding, if you review that email, this was something that Beverly Port Marina did for a number of years. They produced this information to the harbor master for a number of years. They were not unaware that they should not have been surprised. They ceased doing it because and I'm going to take off my, you can read what they wrote in their email about clients and client lists and things like that. So I will, to the extent I can answer your question, this is something that they did for a very long time and recently suspended doing and began making complaints about it. So I would not be of the opinion that this is something that caught them off guard, given that this is something that they did for a number of years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hessman.
Final technical question on the timing. Given that this may be just adding some teeth behind or further teeth behind standard practice, is there anyone who might have a mooring that hasn't been renewed by July 1st who would, 2 weeks from tonight, suddenly find their mooring removed and not be anticipating that? Because the July 1st date as an enforcement period with strong teeth makes me slightly nervous if this would be going into effect immediately.
So these are not, again, when I say that these should not be a surprise, this mooring permit regime, for lack of a better term, has been in existence. So, if you've had a mooring before, you would anticipate receiving a letter from the harbor master's office reminding you that you need to renew your mooring permit or lose it. So, again, this isn't something that if you have a boat moored, then you have a mooring approved and placed in the harbor by the harbor master's office. It shouldn't take anybody by surprise. If anything, they'd probably be worried that they haven't received notice prior to now. So we're not looking to penalize anybody, let's put it that way.
All right, councillors, we have a motion and a second. We've had a chance for discussion and questions. All those in favor of approving Order 175? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you. All those opposed? Okay, and Councillor Bowen is abstaining, so we have 7 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstention. Thank you very much, councillors. So that does carry at 7, 1, and 1. Thank you. Thank you, Assistant Solicitor Dole. Thank you, Mr. Dickman, for your time. We are going to do reports from committees, and then we are going to entertain a motion to move into executive session, but we'll take that up in a moment. Ms. Kent.
Order number 165, Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a transfer request of $2 million from the city's certified free cash balance to be placed into the City and Roads and Sidewalk Capital Fund. Have considered said matter and recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. That carries 9-0.
Order number 164, the Committee on Finance and Property, who refer the matter regarding a transfer request for $1 million from the city's certified free cash balance to be placed in the city's debt stabilization fund, have considered said matter. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. That carries 7-2. Sorry, Counselor. 7-2.
Order number 176, Committee on Finance and Property, who refer the matter regarding CPC 11th round CPA project funding recommendations, consider said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Counselor St. Hilaire, oh, you were just ready to go. I understand. The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 181, Committee on Finance and Property, regarding approval of an appropriation for $45,000 to be transferred from the Airport Enterprise Fund, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on that one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? That was all of us. Okay, 9-0. Thank you.
Order number 183, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a $1,455,000 grant from U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to purchase 8 electric school buses, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Councilor Rotundo.
Question, what are the costs of these buses right now? I know it's 8 buses, $1.4 million, but what are actually, the breakdown that costs to be about $183,000? I'm sure it was discussed, but what would be the liability to the city to purchase that?
Councilor St. Hilaire, we did discuss
We
this
did
in
discuss that, Councilor Rotundo, in committee. The cost of a electric bus is about $340,000, and the cost of a in-kind replacement diesel is $140,000. This grant is expected to cover 55 to 60% of the total cost, and it also opens us up to 3 other grant opportunities that they hope will fund the majority of the rest. Mr. Mayor or Mr. Perry, where did I go wrong there?
Yeah, to answer the other question, the cost will be, any costs will be borne by the school department, not the municipal side.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Thank you, Councilor St. Hilaire. Thought you did a great job summarizing that discussion, so thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Carries 9-0. Thank you.
Order number 185, Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a $7,200 grant and a senior safe grant for $2,600 from the EOPSS for fire safety, have considered said matter. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Carries 9-0.
Order number 186, Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a $5,000 donation from American Gift Fund to the Council on Aging, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Aye. That carries 9-0. And thank you to that. Ms. Barrett explained that that's an anonymous donor, so we don't know who it is, but if they're watching, thank you very much for that gift.
Order number 171, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a reappointment for Amber Redmond to serve on the Conservation Commission, have considered said matter and recommend the council approve this reappointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. That carries 9-0, and thank you to Ms. Redmond for being willing to serve in that capacity.
Order number 174, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a reappointment for William Beckman to serve on the Beverly Licensing Board, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this reappointment.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. That That carries 9-0, and thank you to Mr. Beckman as well.
Order number 180, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding permission to add wine vendors to the Beverly Farmers Market 2024, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend they receive and place this on file.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. I would entertain a motion to receive and place on file as recommended by the subcommittee. All those in favor? Carries 9-0. Thank you.
Order number 187, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a proposed order for the acceptance of portions of Thaxton Road and Old Planters Road in addition to Cumnock Street as public way, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Councilor St. Hilaire.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Assistant City Solicitor Jesse Dole and City Engineer Lisa Chandler. This has been an ongoing issue that they've worked really hard on, and hopefully will lead to the repaving of that neighborhood in the near future. So thank you to the administration and to the mayor as well.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Carries 9-0.
Order number 192, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to refer the matter regarding an application for a Hawkins and Peddles license for John Bone, 26 Arlington Ave, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the license be granted.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Carries 9-0.
Order number 193, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom referred the matter regarding an appointment for Paul Gentili to serve on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend this council approve the appointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Thank you, and thanks to Mr. Gentili for being willing to be part of that new and getting active committee, which will be great to see them get going.
Order number 195, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a grant of permanent easement at 643 Hale Street, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. That carries 9-0.
Order number 198, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a waiver of ordinance 113-2A for Far from the Tree at the Beverly's Farmers Market, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. That carries 9-0.
Order number 199, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a waiver of ordinance 113-2A for Old Planters Brewery from the tree at the Beverly Farmers Market, not from the tree, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Carries 9-0.
Order number 169, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding a reappointment for Nancy Marino to serve on the Beverly Housing Authority, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this reappointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. That carries 9-0, and thank you to Nancy Marino for her willingness to keep serving.
Order number 170, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding reappointments for Barron's Whitfield, Blair Smith, and Bridget Tabbitt to serve on the Beverly Council on Aging, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this reappointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
That carries 9-0, with our thanks to those three for being willing to keep serving as well.
Order number 172, the Committee on Public Service, to whom for the matter regarding an appointment of Hugh Howard to serve on the Waste Reduction Committee, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this appointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. That carries 9-0.
Order number 173, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding an appointment for Sarah Cullinan to serve on the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this appointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Carries 9-0.
Order number 179, the Committee on Public Services, to whom for the matter regarding National Grid 307-87704 Cabot Street, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the petition be granted.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. That carries 9-0. Thank you very much. Legal Affairs Subcommittee, I understand you have a meeting on Monday, is that correct? Thank you. So the Subcommittee on Legal Affairs will meet on Monday. Counselor, do you have a time for that? 6:30. Great, thank you very much. We do have a special meeting, tomorrow, to take up our final discussion and votes on the mayor's proposed FY25 budget. And so at the end of this meeting, you all can leave your names out. You'll be the next people sitting in these seats. So don't worry about putting those away, and the clerk's office doesn't have to set them up for us. Any other reminders or announcements from the council before we take up the next matter? Okay, well, thank you very much to all of the many members of our city staff and administration who have been in and out of the chamber tonight working with us. Thank you again, way back to the beginning of our meeting, to the youth, to the young people, the exemplary youth, their families, their mentors, their teachers, their friends who were here, and our opportunity to honor them, thanks to the Youth Collaborative Board and everybody involved in helping to honor those young people. And we'll look forward to seeing what they continue to do, those exemplary young people. I would, at this point, entertain a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21(3), to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining when an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares. The purpose of the executive session is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with all city collective bargaining units. An executive session is necessary because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the city's bargaining position. Further, as president of the city council, I declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the city's bargaining position. The city council will not reconvene in open session at the conclusion of this executive session. Councilors, this is going to require a roll call vote once there is a motion and a second to enter into executive session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. So Ms. Kent, will you please call the roll?
Bowen? Yes. Crowley? Yes. Feldman? Yes. Hausman? Yes. Rotundo? Yes. Spang?
Yes.
St. Hilaire? Yes. Sweeney?
Yes.
And Flowers.
Yes. That's 9-0 to enter into executive session. As a reminder, we will not reconvene in open session at the conclusion of this executive session. Thanks very much, everyone.